But Jeremy, at 7 o'clock, call the meeting.
I know like that.
Mine's on.
Okay.
We only have three. That's what it did to us the night we tried to. All right, Jamie, 7:01. Call the meeting to order. Previous minutes, did everybody have a chance to read through them? Yes, sir. Was there any corrections or changes to be made?
I make a motion, we accept the previous minutes as presented.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I would abstain as I was not here at the last meeting.
Perfect. Finances.
Yeah, under, Tom will report it.
What's that?
Equipment repair. fund.
Just explain the equipment repair fund, if you would, please.
See what I just. Will you want me to go through my regular list and get to that one?
Yep.
I mean, I'll be quick. I know you got a lot of
Yep.
people here tonight and stuff too. Last time when I was here, I was talking about trying to get stuff out of Nemrick for all the property tax stuff. And into QuickBooks where we have all our deposits and financial information. So I was successful in doing that and I can share all the details with you another time if you really care. But I think it just makes everything more consolidated and efficient and you never had a real receivables program before because there was a Nemrick module that Bakersfield didn't have, and this kind of brings it into QuickBooks. So you kind of have all your parcels in QuickBooks and Nemrick, and I created a way of getting them from one to the other for just keeping track of all the payments, either from the state or property owners. And I think for me and for the future treasurers, it'll be better. My belief.
Perfect.
And also, in talking to the Nemrick people, I was able to also get out the state payments broken out by municipal and educational. So I can bring that in under a state account and kind of keep track and verify and make sure that what they're sending us is what they told us they would send us from all the bills and stuff too. So once again, just trying to bring what was scattered about 4 or 5 places into one. And I think it's better this way, not better, but more concise.
Easier to understand.
Yeah, exactly. And again, it just things that were in 4 places are now in one, which I think bodes well for anyone going forward.
Mhm.
I was told that the treasurer usually hangs out on tax day later for those stragglers that come in.
Mhm.
So I'm willing to stay until 7 if that seems like a reasonable time on tax day.
Yep.
Seemed to be one that other treasurers had stayed until, and anyone that comes in after that.
So are we good to put that out on?
In fact, that's in my notes too.
on the-
Someone said you send that to the messenger and other places, so.
Yeah.
My cohorts in the office and Vera all seem to have that additional information, and I have a good set of notes. Just haven't got there yet, and I don't think it's supposed to be in the messenger until closer to the actual date.
Right, I just saw that somebody was asking today online, so, you know, it'd just be nice to just put that out there.
So I think
Jump.
that's just the next step.
Yeah.
Perfect,
Posting it however many places you want to post it, so.
thank you for that.
Tammy, did you say you already put it on the website in the town crier?
Yeah.
Please do.
Perfect.
So on the town. The town income tax.
Yep,
This is a repair question that Lance had asked me the other day.
yep,
And way back when, if you go down into the expenses and the direct tax, and you've got the little entry for equipment repair fund there. And in your town meeting minutes, you had voted every year, as you told me, to kind of top it off at the 35,000. So the actual budget amount for everything in here is what was voted on town meeting day, except for this one where we topped it off back in May to be the 35,000, so that we knew we had that much available to expend this year. Or to spend this year, and you have the amount that you have spent there, which is the 12,603.
So the remaining,
I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, the number that Lance was kind of looking for, which has more value than the little bit that is just transferred into the checking account and paid out.
Yeah.
Is the 22,396 is the amount that for this year, if I understand that correctly, is kind of what you have left.
And they
What you started with, that you voted in.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
yep, that does.
Okay.
We couldn't find that line item.
And I would agree that the bank balance doesn't really mean anything.
Right.
You're just transferring money as you need it into there to pay it off from that account. So I think that's the number.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Just what's remaining in the equipment repair fund.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's
That's,
what-
that's how much you said you were gonna have available to spend. Now, on a segue to, I included for the first time a little stack of payments that have come through from Vermont, from the state of Vermont
Mhm.
for the road this quarter, next quarter, and 2 quarters in 2025.
I've already
The
came
big
in.
piece, they're all in there,
Okay.
and as I was telling Lance out in the hallway there, I'm gonna put those in a different place, the ones you'll see there's 4 different payments that came through, class 2, class 3. And last time we kind of discussed it, but I found another piece of paper that indeed confirmed 2 of those are the 2025 ones that we just don't want to include in our reports at the end of the year for this year. Or at least I think it makes sense to keep them in a separate pile of money.
Yep.
So that you don't think that you had all.
No,
this
it's to
money
be expended in
there.
2025, yes.
Yeah, so I was just gonna stash those in a different place. That's kind of why everything's still on the town report here, as we got all this money that came to the town that I haven't sent over
Just the,
to
just the
the
grant.
road
Can you talk about it?
part of it.
Yeah.
Because I needed to make sure that I sent it to a place where you guys thought it was appropriate.
Yep.
And in addition to that, there's 80,000 plus of FEMA money, I'm told, from 2019 that is also on that stack of payments that all came in the last 2 months that I have no idea how you want to spend that.
We-
But it's there sitting in our bank account, so
That'll have to go into the road account,
it is, I mean, that's what it is. I
but
mean,
it, we had discussed that 2 meetings previous. To spend part of it on repaving for the avenue. And Brigham Lane.
So that might get moved to like the paving fund, but yeah,
No, you
Yep.
just tell me what you want to pay, and
yep.
Okay.
the money's in an interest bearing account, that's where I try and get it, and then
Perfect.
you can tell me if it needs to go somewhere else or what to do with it. Just a couple of final little notes, I won't be here the first meeting in October. Because the flight got changed, and that Monday I'm coming back into Plattsburgh if I'm lucky, around 6:30 in the evening, no guarantees that that's gonna happen. I'll be here the Tuesday to pay the checks and stuff, and I'll have the reports for you still, because it's a weekend trip to Florida.
Yeah.
So I'll still have the reports for you
Excellent.
in advance, I just won't be here in person.
So,
That's okay.
yeah, and if we have any questions, I assume we could probably give them to Tammy and so, I mean, it wouldn't be anything too complex, simple email could, yep, all right, perfect.
Not like I'm off the grid or anything.
Yep.
And I was able to beat a $270 QuickBooks credit that was on your last warrant where, because our subscriptions for the payroll overlapped. I said I would try and get some money out of them for the difference.
Yep.
I don't know how they did the math, but after 2 hours and talking to 2 people and a digital assistant, I said 270 sounds fine. It seemed like there was only so much further I could go with that. And cemetery control set up now, and I had to talk to them about getting it online. That was just so that they could write more checks out of the cemetery, free checking. So they could write more checks for what they're doing over there without having penalties, because their money market fund had some I forget how many transactions. It was $10 every time. Didn't cost anything out of a new account. just some paperwork to get signed off on.
Okay.
Online access. Go ahead.
Well, I just see here that the bank or the Brigham Academy runs TD Bank. Now, I know they're closing the Enosburg branch.
Mhm.
Is that gonna make that problematic?
Probably.
So,
No, they're still active in St. Albans.
Right, they're-
It just doesn't have local access anymore is the big deal.
So that might make things.
I
complicated.
personally have my accounts there and I'm a little PO'd about it as
Yeah.
well, so.
I just, is there any other members of the library
No.
here? So maybe just put that out there to them.
What is that?
Tom, so the Brigham Library,
Yeah,
they run through TD Bank
right.
and the Enosburg branch is closing. So if there was anything that they needed to do, any business that they wanted to do in person, they would have to go to St. Albans instead of Enosburg. I don't know if it's a big deal, but,
When.
no,
No.
No,
just
I can check with her,
worth,
but-
just worth a question, you know?
I think I'm the only one that I can transfer money online.
Okay.
And I live in St. Albans, so
Okay.
that's actually easier for me to get the St. Albans one.
Okay.
And
Okay.
just for the deposits that come through. So at the moment, I don't see that. being a
Not an issue.
problem.
Perfect.
Unless they might have something that they do in person, I doubt.
Okay, no, I saw that, wanted to make sure it was
No, good,
checked.
good question.
Good.
Um,
Anything else? Nope.
two things.
Yeah,
Were you added to the credit cards for both the town and the library yet?
I don't.
We had put that out a few meetings ago that we wanted you on both checking accounts.
Yeah, I don't remember signing anything like I've done at all the bank accounts and stuff, so we'll double check on that one.
Can you follow up on that?
I think you had to sign saying you were coming off it, right?
I'm not on the credit cards. It was, what happened was Kathy and I think it's, I'll say Wendy, somebody from the library are on the town card. He wasn't. And when we tried to do things, we couldn't get it done in a timely manner because neither of them were available. It's like, he should be on the town's credit card and he should be on the treasurer, if whoever's the treasurer should be on the town treasurer on it and on, because they handle the library on their card.
Okay,
The bank account you're talking about, I've yet to be told I have to go in and sign anything.
okay,
So I don't think that's happened either.
No, you're on all the community bank ones from way
Right.
back, you and I.
Yeah, I'm not on the TD Bank
The
one.
library ones, I'm on all of the bank accounts.
Yep.
It's just credit card ones we can check. I don't even know if they need a signature or just a name. Cause it
Yeah, I
was,
know.
they wouldn't talk to me because I wasn't on it.
Right, whenever we went through all those hoops.
So I don't know if I need a signature or if they just.
okay,
This is when we were trying to buy QuickBooks.
Yeah,
This is how
that's
far it
right,
goes
too.
back.
Yep.
Yeah, Kathy was supposed to call because she's the person on our card and have him add it and remove the library person from it. And vice versa, right? Thank you.
Yep.
The other thing is, and this is just a point of, hello,
Hi.
Oh, you did, you.
library card.
You snuck in. You snuck in, yes.
So on the other side of the house is Lance, I'd leave this to you because I can explain it, but you did well. Just because we've talked about the FEMA funds coming in and it being the road account, can we explain why it goes into the road account versus another fund?
Because FEMA is reimbursing expenses from the road account. That's why the FEMA money has to go back into the road account.
Thanks. I just wanted that on the recording in case someone sees it and goes, hey, that could go. So I appreciate that.
No,
That's 2019, is that correct?
that is from the October 31st storm in 2019.
Yeah.
And that is the last of it. That closes it.
Excellent. About time. Only took 5 years.
Yeah.
Cool beans. That's all I had.
any others? She had her hand up back there, I don't know if it's, you'll touch base with her anyway. Excellent, perfect. Any others on that? No, all right.
Tom.
Thank you,
You don't
Tom.
need people to sign off.
Okay, she's going to talk to. If anybody's following along on the agenda, we've spoke with Mr. Wescombe and he was willing to switch spots so that we could talk with the Sheriff Grismore.
Good evening.
Evening.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate making the ride up here.
My pleasure. Pleasure. So what questions can I answer? I know that I've communicated a couple of different options for the board's review and I'm here to answer questions and field concerns or whatever you like.
Excellent. So what we're hoping to do is we have an item going on to the November election for the town to allow the select board to spend X number of dollars. We haven't put we've put a number on there, but it's a starting point to find law enforcement services for our town. I think the frustration in our town right now is the drag strip that extends from Enosburg to Jeffersonville.
You've seen the black marks on the road.
Yeah.
And the known drug house. Plural, could be, that is here in town.
And the petty crime that goes along.
And the petty crime that goes along with it. What we're hoping for, or I guess trying to prevent, I guess would be the way to say it, is people in our town having to take the law into their own hands because we're not getting.
It's close to it now.
It is. Way closer than I'd like. It's one of those things that you don't think about, you don't worry about until it hits close to home. And, well, my neighbors have had their cars broke into. My parents' dog chased the guy off the backyard. And I mean, we're not talking at night, we're talking broad daylight. People on camera that are easily identified as under the influence of something way stronger than alcohol or marijuana.
We had the one person who was sitting there watching their grandchild and the guy walked in the house and literally asked if they were home alone.
Yeah.
You know, like, is anyone else here kind of thing. It's a becoming a more and more larger problem. And they're getting more brazen.
We've had issues with our first responders.
Yeah. One was accosted
Yep.
by somebody in the middle of the street.
And there's been little or no response from law enforcement. We're concerned. We're worried.
This has been going on for quite some time. Don't think in response to the responding that Lance was just talking about. When I first got on the board, was that 6 years ago now? We got called to a house.
Forgotten
Vacant,
about that one.
vacant, a rental property that there was concerns about the people inside. We did not call the sheriff's department, we called the state police, but we asked for just, like a wellness check. Nobody had seen these people. Again, known drug users. We were, people were concerned about safety and welfare. We were told not our job. So Lance and myself as acting constable and assistant constable went into a house with no idea what we were gonna find. And it didn't feel right, I know things down at the state police have changed and they're trying to get better. But I think the town feels, because we did try to get some police coverage back then. I feel like the town is now in a point where the entire town is looking for coverage, service.
That was actually the second incident similar to that.
Right, I wasn't on for the first one.
No, I was. Willie and I went down and checked that one out. Fortunately for us, there was no one present in either house. Second house, it was full of animals,
Luckily,
in desperate shape.
So I guess what we're hoping to get, we did get your first email with I think is it 95 or 98? 91. Okay, sorry. We got that. Weren't sure, if that was like a starting point or if there's room for negotiation. We know that in years past, when we've talked about services like this, there's been the whole, our clock starts when we get in the car, whether we live in Georgia or we live in Fairfield. So I guess there was just questions around that as far as like what your policies are. Where there's room for negotiation, where there's not, and if we can narrow down. What we are looking for a quote from you or a proposal.
Minimum contract hours.
Minimum contract hours, at this time, you know, we're in the middle of a budget season, really, so I mean. We have a set number that we can spend, so I mean. One of the things that we were told was, and this is just word of mouth from other towns around, that. You won't do anything less than a 3-year contract. Okay, I'm glad to hear that, very glad to hear that, because at this point right now, we don't have anywhere near the budget for a 3-year contract. We'd love to do, you know, and in complete honesty, we're looking at Lamoille County to see if they're willing. We're looking at St. Albans City. We've looked at Swanton, State Police, you know, we're. I don't want to say desperate because that kind of puts you in the driver's seat for negotiations, but
Looking at all.
we're looking at all options. Being where we are,
Constable.
we have looked at our own constable. Yeah, there's a ton of things out there and we're looking for what we can do to help our
The
town.
best deal we can get for the town is really.
Well, there's a lot there, right?
Yeah, without a doubt.
There's a lot. So let's kind of go through it. I'll try to keep it in order to how you kind of laid it out. So first and foremost, the problems that Bakersfield is facing are not different than anybody else. You know, what we're seeing is as initiatives, particularly around the enforcement of drug activities, move as more pressure is put on the city, they branch out.
Mhm.
As it becomes more widely known, as it is very well known now in the drug counterculture, Vermont is a very understaffed state from a law enforcement perspective. That combined with very lenient sentencing guidelines have made this a drug dealer's paradise. It really is. I have interacted with a number of people in my career that will tell you straight up, I love coming to Vermont. Because the worst case scenario, I'll get arrested, I'll be out the next day, and I'll just go back and keep doing it, right? They know that this is a very lucrative place to deal drugs. I've spoken about this a lot publicly, and it really is a cancer, you know, and until communities like Bakersfield want to be aggressive about this, and that unfortunately requires dollars, then this is just gonna be a problem where we're pushing the issue around the community. Now, fortunately, in Franklin County, we have some very aggressive state's attorneys. You know, we have a very great rapport with them. And we're working, and I have met with the state's attorney. I say he's kind of new, he's not really new, but Bram, and we've had a lot of conversations around how really to be partners in this issue. Again, some of the challenges we have are at the legislature, right? That the laws, the sentencing guide, the Bail Reform Act of 2018 that's been modified really handcuffs a lot of the people that are in the process that all of us as citizens rely on to make lives bigger. Law enforcement lives easier, prosecutorial lives easier, the entire criminal justice system. So I tell you all that, to tell you this is for whatever it's worth, you're not different than everybody else. Everybody has the same problems. And I've spoken with all of the towns in my career here so far, and again, they have the same concerns. Traffic, motor vehicle enforcement is a big concern. It's a quality of life issue, squealing tires, speeding kids, you know, all those kinds of things. I'm not sure Bakersfield has the same kind of issues with ATVs, but we've seen those in some communities as well.
Had you been here at the last meeting, when the meeting ended, we were standing on the porch. And there was a line of about
5, I think it was 5.
5 or 6.
Yeah.
So a little bit more, yeah.
Yeah.
I think there was a couple more, but 5 or 6 is enough. They came right down Main Street, the whole line of them. Doing wheelies,
Yeah.
and they turned right down this road and sped down this road.
Yeah, they're loud. they're
Don't
unsafe.
forget-
Yeah,
Don't forget they flipped us off on the way by.
No, actually, I told them to slow to
Leave it open.
half down, and one of them actually turned to wave to me. And misunderstanding what I was screaming about. He had no clue he was doing anything wrong.
Yeah, so again, so those, for what it's worth, the problems that you face are the same problems. So it really comes down to what approach you all want to take to have law enforcement. We are incredibly thinly sparse right now, right? The numbers of law enforcement are incredibly low, and the truth of it is, people don't want to be cops in Vermont. That is the sad and painful truth that we feel with.
Well, with the backing you're saying you're getting, I completely understand that.
Yep,
Yeah.
yeah, so it's something that, and I've been asked about this a million times, is, how do we change this? How do we shift this culture? And it really is something that we need to take a multifaceted approach to. Bringing law enforcement to the table is great. Supporting state's attorneys is great. We really need to lean on the legislative representation that we have to make some changes. I mean, that's the bottom line. That's the bottom line for how we're really gonna change things. I can tell you right now that my folks are frustrated with doing the jobs. I've had a number of very, very good people leave this profession because they just can't take it anymore. So what that means from a sheriff's perspective, or from a lieutenant station commander's perspective, or a chief's perspective, is that we've got to get very, very creative with how we leverage the resources that we have. And we have to create these partnerships. Now, the great news is we've got great partnerships between the state police and St. Albans PD and Swanton PD, and we collaborate the best that we can. The days of fighting over territory are over. There's just not enough of us, so it's not a surprise that you're looking at other, agencies to provide services. The truth of it is they probably can't do it either, and it's not about, who's the necessarily the better fit for Bakersfield. It's just who really has the resources to do it. State police are struggling. St. Albans is struggling. We are actually, and knock on wood, are the only department that I've known about that actually has a surplus of people at this point in time. So that won't last forever. So that's why we're looking at creating other, additional opportunities for our folks. So.
Can I ask?
Yes.
It's always been an issue with me, and don't take this personally. Why don't towns get equal coverage? How do you allocate your forces in such a way that and I'm sure that you believe in your mind that all the towns are getting equal coverage, or if not, please let me know. But it seems like to us here in Bakersfield, your department is rarely seen, as well as the state police. You're not alone. Can you answer that for me, please?
Absolutely. So we don't have a contract with Bakersfield, so you won't see us up here. That's how that works.
Well, hold it. Don't you provide coverage for the county?
The department does not provide complete coverage for the county. No.
So forgive the term, unless we pay protection money, we're not going to see you.
Generally, no, you won't, unless we come up and do things like we did just recently with Governor's Highway Safety, or we did some other of those.
I will say that you had a presence here, what, 2 weeks ago? And it was a pleasant surprise. I'm glad to see you here.
Yes, how it works with us, and this is how it works throughout the entire state, that sheriff's departments have the opportunity, the ability to create individualized contracts with towns.
Mhm.
Okay, so historically, we've had contracts with Richford, with Enosburg. Presently, we have contracts with Highgate, with Fairfax, with Georgia. Franklin has a little contract. So we provide dedicated resources for those. What I think is where there might be some confusion is I think people think of us like the state police. The state police are the ones that have the overall responsibility for the county. So it's not like in other states where rural policing is left to sheriff's organizations, and like highway patrol is like state police, highway patrol kind of a thing. And then municipalities like a city would have like, Pittsburgh PD or things like that. It doesn't work that way in Vermont. So how we support our personnel is through these town contracts. We have to pay somebody. We don't get state funds to provide patrol services to Bakersfield, right? We don't get those funds that like the state police would have.
Educate me, where do your funds come from?
From the contracts.
100%?
We get county money there, so there's some statutorily required things like the county has to pay for an office. They have to pay for a bookkeeper, they have to pay for a secretary. That's the same in every county in Vermont. But as far as patrol, that is in each county does it a little different. We might have a bigger patrol organization than another. Some might not have any patrol. But for us, we've had a pretty big patrol, but that's all funded from the individualized contracts that we have.
So if I could,
That stems from the fact that we have no county government? No?
No.
so if I could, why do we vote for you? Like, why do we vote? I mean, not me personally, but no, but I'm just saying, we're voting for the position, yet The position, the only way that position has any bearing up here is if we pay for a contract. So why have an election? That, I guess that's the way I want to put it.
Could be a
We're-
private-
we're sure.
We're gonna go down a rabbit hole with that.
It just confuses me.
Constitution and.
Mhm.
Just confuses me. That's
Yeah.
all I'm saying. It's
Sure.
like a
Yeah,
very
so
weird
again,
thing.
The sheriffs, and this is my first term, so I haven't been a sheriff for very long, so. I might not be as well versed as some others are that have been doing this job for a while, but. The sheriff has responsibilities in the state of Vermont that are defined by statute, like serving civil process. Okay, that's a requirement that we have, so we're up here in Bakersfield and in all the other towns that we don't necessarily have a patrol contract with. Doing civil service, evictions, paperwork services, those kinds of things.
So those things are still counting,
Those things
those
are still
still covered at a
counted.
county.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah, but as far as patrol contracts, those are town specific, based on an agreement that we make with those towns in and of themselves. Now, the benefit of all of that is that you have dedicated services. So to maybe the question about how do we guarantee coverage? So when we have town coverage, those are based on hours for that town. So if we have a 40-hour contract, we're in that town 40 hours. We don't do, 8 hours and then 6 hours somewhere else because we get called to deal with something else. Now, that's a little gray in that we do, if somebody needs backup. Okay, so if there's a issue that somebody needs help in Richford and we're in Eastburg, we're gonna go to Richford to help, right? And then we go back to our area. So there's always that give and take that you might be more familiar with, like the memorandums of understanding that we have, right? So ours are like fire departments, right? You ring the 5 bells and then agencies come from everywhere and we worry about who gets paid later, right?
Yeah.
We
We'll
did-
get to
we did
questions
have
from the
reduction.
audience in a minute. Okay, we'll finish up here and then we'll open the floor.
So,
Sorry.
so that's how it works. So if Bakersfield is desirous of a dedicated contract from my office, that's something certainly we can talk about. What we prefer is a longer term contract, and that just is around how do we develop an organization around longevity. Nobody wants to work, I don't know if anybody's worked, I worked in the contract world, it can be very tumultuous, where the end of the contract comes, people might not have a job. If the contract doesn't get signed, and that's the case we find ourselves in right now. Richford and Eastburg opted not to re-sign with us, so now people that I had allocated for those contracts, or at least had strategically planned for those contracts, now I'm trying to find work for them. So that's kind of where we're at with that. Yep.
So on the proposal that was sent via email, there was the talk of like I'll use a term called setup fee, right? And I couldn't tell if that was being waived according to the email or.
We don't have a setup fee.
I believe I saw in here is,
15,000.
yeah, it was 15,000. I thought I saw something for $15,000 in the proposal. Is a proposal in here?
That's,
Oh, here it is.
that's
I
all.
thought I
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's everything we have on that.
In the proposal, there was a statement in here about some form of. I call it a setup fee. I don't know what the term was used, but it was like $15,000 up front. And then there would be a stipend from there. I'm just trying to.
You sure it's my proposal? I've written every proposal we have, but I've never had a setup.
What was this proposal, wasn't
Not from our organization.
it?
That's the only one we've received so far.
I'm just
So, yeah.
like, yeah, the only one we received and
We don't have a setup.
cost proposal. There it is. You have, many police agencies offer a significant sign-on bonus.
So bonuses, correct.
Okay, so you have 50, it says as much as 15,000 and free or very inexpensive health care plans. That combined with the significant increase in inflation, Do you charge a sign-on bonus?
No, we don't. I'm trying, in the paragraph, that's the closing paragraph, right?
Yeah, it's one of the
Last
last.
two closing paragraphs.
Yeah.
I'm trying to help people that are new to us understand why the costs are the costs that they are.
So you're referring to a sign-on bonus for your
Correct.
officers.
We have to be competitive with agencies that offer as much as $15,000 sign-on bonuses. We do not offer sign-on bonuses.
So he's talking sign-on bonus for his officers.
Right.
His
Why we
deputies.
need to remain competitive.
I got you.
Costs are up. Yep.
I got you, okay.
What? I don't want to put this cheaply. What would be the minimum contract that you would entertain with the town of Bakersfield? So we know where we can start and possibly work up from.
Sure.
Yours are out.
This is what I would recommend, and this is what we're doing in Georgia. So we had a contract with Georgia. There was some, let's say, challenges with the previous administration about how that contract played out.
Mhm.
They got upset, didn't want us in. That changed things. Now they wanted to come back and they wanted to try us out again. So we're doing a trial basis. We're doing 8 hours a week with them. with the hopes that we can, prove ourselves,
Mhm.
we can demonstrate the value. And that, so when it comes time to, like you all are prepping for November, for the November election cycles and budgetary considerations and voting and all that kind of stuff, then they're gonna have some good data, a very good feeling about the services that we can provide, and then we'll be looking at a much bigger contract next time around. That's what we're hoping. So I would recommend the same thing with Bakersfield, and that's the same thing I recommend with all the towns that we don't have a previous relationship with.
Okay.
So 8 hours a week.
It could be 4
That's,
hours.
that's what you're saying that,
Yeah, but 8 hours a week for a year, for 6 months, so.
You decide. I'm willing to work with you however we can work with you. Yep.
Now, how do you determine when those 8 hours are used?
We do it mutually. We decide collectively. on how that
Okay.
works. So with Georgia as an example, or Highgate, or Fairfax, I will put the schedule together. So, and to answer the question about the, we sign on, if we live in Georgia, we sign on, that's not how we do it.
Okay.
So how we've arranged this, and this goes back, back when Norris was the sheriff,
Right.
is that because towns had that same concern, is that, if I'm up in Richford and I live in St. Albans, then is Richford paying now for the
3 hours of travel?
45 minutes back? Didn't seem fair.
Right.
So how we do our schedules, we do a schedule this in a 4-2 basis. We have 4 days on, 2 days off. And so how that works is that every pay period that we're paying our folks for the 40 hours, even in some cycles, they might only work technically 72 hours. But that's the idea, is that they're on the clock for 8.5 hours. So we share, so the town pays 15 minutes, we pay the office pays 15 minutes.
Okay.
So that there's that mutually beneficial thing.
Okay.
And it's not a nickel and diming over, well, hey, they signed on
Yeah.
and they have, right? So that's how we got around that. We also have GPS units in our cruisers. So although that's not data that we will provide to the public, if there is a concern, you bring that concern to my attention, I look it up, we resolve that issue. Right? So that's one way around that kind of thing. So that's how that works. So that works out very, very well. And that, there's a little give and take and those kinds of things. Yep.
So we're looking at a possibility of a contract late in the year. It depends on voter turnout and voter response. But we're hoping that would be possible. Is that possible on your end?
Later in the year,
Yes.
sure.
so we,
And again, personnel dependent,
Yeah.
right? So that's always been the big caveat in any of the relationships that I've entered into, is that's a variable back in the day that we could control very well. Everybody wanted to be a cop. We never had to worry about people leaving on their own volition. It was, disciplinary action was the only way that people left this profession. That's not the case, so I can't guarantee that we'll have the personnel later in time. I can't guarantee that we'll have the personnel tomorrow. Things are very good, morale's still very good in the organization. We do a lot to promote morale in the organization, competitive pay, those kinds of things, but if things go the way that they are right now, we shouldn't have any issues staffing whatever contract you're looking for.
We'll know which way we're going post the election in November.
Yep.
Because it's going to be a line item on the ballot.
If
So-
it passes, would you be available for a meeting? In November, even if we have to have a special meeting?
I think our next Monday is our, because it's the second Monday, I think right after the election, we'll
that's
know
true.
in the meeting right, the next week.
What would that be? Well, we'll contact you.
I'm available.
Okay.
So the question I have is, in the contracts you've had with Enosburg, Richford, and these places where the hours weren't met, how do you deal with that from your contract perspective? Is there a penalty clause that goes against you versus the village, since we didn't get the service that we contracted for?
There
How
is-
have you guys kind of done that?
Yeah, so when I came into office.
Right.
The hours weren't getting met, right? So I know that there has been this public misperception out there that I'm the one that's changed things, which is garbage. That's absolutely not true. The reality and the truth of it is, I level set those services around those towns that we were not providing services to. Everything was being given to St. Albans Town. We were neglecting, I say the office was neglecting Sheldon, Enosburg, Richford. When I came into office, one of the first things that I did was level set that. We pulled resources from St. Albans Town. We went from 24/7 to, 7 by 16 hours.
Right.
And those resources, we weren't fully able to commit, we didn't have the personnel. We weren't fully able to commit to Richford or Enosburg or Sheldon, but at least we were able to give them some where they were getting none or very little. So again, it's all resource dependent. And the silver lining is nothing will ever be a shock to you or any of the other towns that we deal with. I'm very communicative with that, you know, there's this misperception that I didn't communicate with Enosburg. I'll dig up the 9 emails that I sent to them in the first 2 months in office, where I was very clear about the challenges we're facing, the attrition problems, people leaving this profession. Those are things that I can't control. I'm sure all of you are in the business world outside of your roles here, you deal with those same kind of challenges, right? So I've been very communicative of that problem that we've had, and I would do the same with you. And to the point about the, how do we come up with a schedule? Exactly that. I collaborate very closely with the towns that we work with now. We come up with a schedule. I put it out a week in advance. Sometimes it changes at last minute, but we put that out a week, maybe 2 weeks in advance, and it gives you all an opportunity to take a look at it. How are we satisfying those hours? Then you would all come back to me and say, hey, we'd really like you to be up here Friday night. You know, 4 hours Friday night would be great. You know, Sunday morning, not really a lot of activity going on. Maybe Saturday afternoon, or like Georgia, for example. I had put on the schedule 2 4-hour blocks for them, and they said, hey, we got our fall fest coming up. Can we move those hours to Saturday? And I kind of, sure, absolutely, we can accommodate that. So that's exactly how I would envision any of the partnerships
Okay.
that I have now working with you all. You say, hey, look, and I really rely and value on the input from you and members of the community. You know, where can we be? I'm not up here all the time. I don't live up in Bakersfield, you know, so where can we get the best bang for the buck? Where can we be most effective, most visible, have the biggest impact on the, you know, on the problems that you're facing? And also recognizing that those things change from season to season,
Mhm.
right?
It would be nice to have a presence here. Quite frankly, we're used to seeing the sheriff's squad car at 4th of July parade, and that's about it. I don't mean that disrespectfully, but that's basically the truth.
Well, again, now I think you understand, if you see a cruiser, somebody's paying for that.
Mhm.
That's how that works, but differently than the governor's highway safety, right? So like we were up here the other day. Last Wednesday, and we'll be up here again, you know, that's not, we're not a one and done, we're gonna be here, and I've offered this to all the communities, including the ones that we have contracts with. I've reached out, Bakersfield, you all were just quick to respond and said, hey, we'd like some support here. We're great, we're up here.
Absolutely.
So other towns have, you know, there's been crickets, so we're not gonna focus our time there, people don't want us there, we'll go to where we're needed and where we're wanted, right? So that's how we'll kind of continue to use those funds that we'll have throughout the rest of the year, and then next year will be the new monies, and we'll dedicate those resources accordingly and so forth. So, and that's another good point, is that, on that, and I'll use Georgia, for example. If I have an extra person and I have somebody working in Georgia, then, and it works great for us from an officer safety perspective, then I'll put somebody from a governor's highway safety, you know, something that, you know, Georgia's not paying for as an example, but they're getting 4 hours of coverage. So now, and they're just motor vehicle stuff, right? So we're really making sure that we're addressing some of the speeding issues and DUIs and things like that. So there's a lot of benefit with having us partner, because we'll bring those resources wherever we go.
Yeah, in my tenure as a select board member, and that's what, 17 years now. It's been put before the people, would they support financially a contract with a law enforcement agency, and it's been turned down. But in light of recent activities, I think that's changed. And I'm hoping for a positive response from the voters this time around. So I'm looking forward to working with you.
We'd love to be in Bakersfield, we'd love to be in Fairfield. You know, there's lots of towns that we've just never had partnerships with that we'd love to branch into, even if they're a little bit here, a little bit there, you know, and our folks would love that too. You know, our folks would love to be in other areas and stretch out. I mean, it's a great county to patrol, you know, and so there's a lot of mutually beneficial things that would come out of those kind of partnerships for sure.
So the last question I have, we have town ordinances that are based, significantly on ATVs. If you were asked during your contracted hours, you know, if you were up here on a Saturday, you know, when it's 90 degrees and everybody's out there on their wheelers, when you write those tickets, I know the state police and anything that happens on the state highway, that money goes back to the state. If you write a ticket on our town ordinances, does that money for that ticket come back to the town? is it split between? How does that whole thing work?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what the percentages are,
Okay.
but when we write under, so there's a Title 23 code that is a village ordinance.
Mhm.
That's a code that does get towns more money, so we like to write them more under those codes when we can. Sometimes it's a little goofy, like especially if you're on a major road, Route 7 or 5, it gets a little difficult because of how the codes are, because over 50-mile-an-hour zones, it's a little bit different. But yeah, we certainly maximize, you know, those ordinances.
So is that it?
violations better.
Is that a negotiated thing or is that set in stone somewhere in a law that needs to be?
No, we have the discretion to write them under a village ordinance or under a regular statute that
Okay.
might apply to the same thing, you know, so like speeding, for example.
Yep.
You know, there actually is a one that where there's for 50-mile-an-hour zones, it's called basic rule, if you've ever heard of that.
Mhm.
So it's 1081B. But that code can also be written under local basic rule. So
Okay.
that's kind of that flag where more money comes to those communities than that kind of general fund. I unfortunately, I just don't know what those percentages are.
Okay.
I'm sure I can find out for you.
Okay.
but-
Would you expect that income comes from that would
I'll say.
go toward
Contract.
Contract.
your contract, so
So the more, those-
a win for you.
the more of those you write, the more
Yeah.
we can pay for. Okay, I think that's the last question I had for him. Is there?
There were some folks out on the floor that
Yes, there
had
are.
questions. So it's gonna be tricky because you gotta get on mic. So why don't you go up right where Tammy is and use that mic if you don't mind to ask your question?
Or sit,
State your name
or sit with Sheriff Grismore.
or sit with Sheriff. Just state your name.
Ginger Parent, I'm the second assistant chief of the local fire department. First, I have a basic question and then I'll get a little more detailed. When you say you're contracted for 8 hours a week or whatever, are your officers responding from home or are they gonna sit in town for those 8 hours a week?
They better be up here.
Secondly, because of the lack of law enforcement in all areas, fire departments have kind of become the response to all hazards. We're managing, you know, hit and run accidents, we're hitting violent crimes. I've entered gunshot scenes because there hasn't been any police around. Scary, but I'll do it because that's my job and that's what I've committed to my community. You started talking about the different law enforcement agencies, kind of like I'll use the term mutual aid because I'm a firefighter, that's what we use. Are you telling me that when I have a man spitting in my face at a car accident, calling me all kinds of names, VSP's not responding because it doesn't sound important enough, I could call on the radio and say I need a sheriff then?
You could certainly call us. I don't know that we'll be able to come. Yeah, so if I'm working in Highgate,
Mhm.
I can't leave to support you unless it's life or death, right? If there's a life or death situation like that, certainly I would hope that our folks are gonna use discretion and respond and.
Because they spoke about, I was the first responder that was attacked on a call, August 24th, 2023. I was screaming in my radio as I was being grabbed and taken to the ground that I was being assaulted and got no response,
That's horrible.
none.
Nope, I'm sorry.
I got a, please come to the station and fill out a report. I had 2 eyewitnesses. I had ring camera video evidence and it was never researched. Nothing was done, no follow-up. So in my mind, as all of this event was happening, I thought I'm screaming into central dispatch. They're gonna let the sheriffs know, maybe a sheriff sitting in Enosburg. But there was nothing.
Yep, so.
So
I'm
that's-
not sure that particular date and who was on and. who-
Right. I'm,
Yep,
but we were told BSP was aware. And in our minds, we went to, okay, they're on the way. It was an unconscious man on a 4-wheeler. So. Going forward, is there a chance that we can say if there's a sheriff available, please send them?
I would, if you're in a situation like that, then I would absolutely hope that anybody from anywhere, I would hope that Border Patrol's coming. I hope that if nobody's responding, somebody from St. Albans PD's coming. You know, I mean, when I worked for St. Albans PD, I went to Fairfax when an officer was getting beat up.
But the-
You just
But the truth of the matter is, nobody responded.
Yeah, and I, it's horrible. As a steward of law enforcement in this county, that's deplorable. I don't know the specifics of that. I don't know who was tied up, how the things went down, where the lack of communication was. It's horrible that that happened to you.
'Cause the rumor around town is VSP after 1 AM goes home and responds from home from calls.
I'm not sure what
For-
specific schedule is, but yeah, yep,
I don't know.
yeah.
But Bakersfield is desperate.
Yep.
Now ignore that I'm a firefighter. I don't want, this is not coming from the view of a firefighter or the fire department, this is my personal opinion. They're holding like gun safety classes. That scares the crap out of me, because what happens is I have to go to a call, get the wrong address, knock on a door and get shot because somebody's nervous, someone's breaking into their house. I would love to hear from you some ideas of what this community can do to start protecting themselves and being proactive rather than reactive and being angry that law enforcement isn't here.
That's a big one. But a good one, right? So yeah, we don't want, and somebody said it before, we don't want vigilantism. That nobody wins in that scenario. However, I can certainly appreciate the desperation that folks are feeling with defending their loved ones. If somebody came into my house, it could be a problem for somebody as well if they were hostile, right? So I can appreciate that. The solution is a big solution. There's two phases to that. One is, how do we fund more law enforcement? How do we change the dynamics of law enforcement? So like when I first came on in 1997, when I got offered a slot with the state police, there were 197, people vying for 6 positions. Right? You can't find 6 people, right, for 197 positions, right? So the bigger picture is, what can we do to change the culture, right? So that's a big picture. The small picture is, how do we allocate funds to get more law enforcement up here? The thing about the sheriff's organization is that we're dedicated resources. The state police are responsible for the entire county, and then sometimes Grand Isle County, a lot of times Grand Isle County as well, right? So their numbers are incredibly small as well to cover a big area. They have the same problems that we have. It's not that, and I've worked with a lot of them, it's not that they don't care. I hate to think that anybody thinks that there's a person out there with a badge that is like, who cares about that call? That's not the case at all. Hand to God, I've never seen that in my 28 years in this profession. Everybody that I've worked with or seen is dedicated, committed, they want to do the job. They're here under horribly challenging circumstances to continue doing this job. You want to have a sidebar about how horrible it is to be a cop in Vermont, I'm happy to have that conversation with you. But there's a lot of dedicated people. So I don't think it's somebody saying, well, we're too busy, we don't care, none of that stuff. It's just a matter of where those resources are and how they're available. It also sounds like maybe in your case, there could have been a communication breakdown, right? So you're operating on a frequency that the police generally don't have, right? So you're operating on VHF and we're on UHF. Right. So we're reliant on our dispatchers to get the communications from you and then figure out how to get you support as quickly as we can. The good news is I work with a lot of the dispatchers in St. Albans PD. They're incredibly good too,
Absolutely.
I don't think that anybody would say, hey, we've got a firefighter getting her, the snot beat out of her and what's for dinner, I don't see that ever. I've never seen that either. So are there efficiency opportunities? Every time, right? There's always ways that we can be better and more efficient, leverage those resources, get you help when you need help. So the immediate fix is, how can we get people up here more often, right? So the great thing about our contracts is, we're not working in Bakersfield and then called to Fairfax for a call. That happens in the state police. It just does, right? So they could be up here, doing a lot of really great motor vehicle enforcement work, and then something really big happens in another part of it, and they're all have to go there to deal with that situation. We stay, and that's how we work well together. That's how the state police and the sheriff's office work very well together, is that they will go handle the issue, unless it's a really big deal, we're staying put. And we're here available to you when you have those things happen to you. Yep. And the more money, and this is the sales pitch, right? But the more money that the town comes up with, the more hours that we can be up here, the higher probability is that you're gonna get the support you need, and you'll get the support you need, and you get the support you need. So it's.
So as a homeowner, tell me 3 things I can do tonight besides going down to protect myself.
3 things you can do?
Yep.
I would love to see us get back to the grassroots efforts of community involvement. Right, and I've seen this in other towns, right? The whole see something, say something. We get this a lot with like, well, Jimmy's doing burnouts in his truck. I did a burnout in my dad's BMW. He got this really his favorite car in the world. I peeled out of McDonald's when I was 16 years old. By the time I got home, 4 minutes later, he's in the driveway. That doesn't happen anymore, right? So these community initiatives get in community involvement. I'm not saying that people need to go out and be police officers, but who these people are that are causing problems. Why aren't we having conversations with them? Why aren't we instilling this community spirit again of small town? And this great thing about Vermont, certainly like a town like Bakersfield, it's a small town. We know everybody, right? Everybody knows everybody. Let's have those conversations, right? And don't just say, well, it's the police problem to deal with. You know, it's an issue. And we had this happen in Richford as an example. You know, burnouts every day. It's Timmy's truck. We all know it's Timmy's truck. We have to be able to positively identify the driver. You know, even while it has dark hair, it's not good enough, right? We have to, and we did that. We said, okay, you know, you all are right. We're gonna write tickets. They all got dismissed. So, and that just emboldens them, right? So those are things that we can do. And one of the things that I pride our organization on doing is that you call me up and say, hey, Timmy Smith is doing burnouts. We're going to Timmy Smith's house. We don't need to wait for him to do it. We're gonna be proactive and we're gonna have that conversation and say, hey, look, we don't want to be up here writing tickets all day long. We don't want to have this adversarial relationship with members of the public, right? We want to be a resource for folks. We don't want to be like, oh, the cops are here, everybody's got to behave again. We want that to happen anytime. So we'll go to those folks, we'll have those conversations, we'll map out a corrective action plan for them. And that might be like, next time, we're going to tow your vehicle. We're going to take your ATV. We're going to make it painful for you. Hopefully we don't have to get there, but so I'd love to see us get back to this neighborhood watch idea of coming up with better ways of communicating issues that happen, right? The most of the folks, and we saw this again, as you just using Richford as an example, when they opened up the roads to ATVs, everybody was out of control on ATVs. We got tons and tons of complaints about people driving, you know, erratically, horribly, disrespected, all that kind of stuff. We went up there and it really wasn't the case. Yeah, there's a few bad apples that are creating problems for everybody else, but the majority of people are driving safe, are operating with helmets, with registrations and those kinds of things, right? So once we're able to go up in a situation like that and really get some good data, then we can bring it back and say, well, are there other things that we can do to curb the behaviors, you know? And when we saw this with VAX, if you all remember, before there was snowmobiles just going everywhere, right? And farmers' fences were getting cut and it was a huge problem. Well, once VAS started getting a lot of traction and creating a membership, it became an ownership, and they started policing themselves, right? And we're starting to see that now with VASA, you know, with that now that organization is getting some more popularity, and now people are saying, hey, look, you know, I don't want you running across Old Man Smith's field again, because it makes it bad for us, and pretty soon we're not going to have that right, so we're going to police that ourselves. So those are just two good examples of how things that were like, oh, you know, snowmobiles are out of control and ATVs are out of control. This community involvement and this ownership really eradicated that problem. And law enforcement is, you know, our piece now in those two arenas is really around education. You know, our enforcement efforts are really small and, you know, snowmobiles and with ATVs. Of course, there's people that are going to drive recklessly, just like with motorcycles. There's a lot of people that operate motorcycles safely, and there's people that don't. And so you see a bullet bike go by, and then every motorcyclist is, you know, driving irresponsibly. That's not true. So I'd love to see, you know, more initiatives around community involvement, getting these, you know, see something, say something initiatives forward, and then letting us be partnerships in that solution. You know, not just saying, well, you know, ATVs are a problem, let's call the cops. Sometimes, yes, absolutely. But you know, it's Timmy Smith. If you don't want to have that conversation with them, we'll go have that conversation with them. Then the next time, now we've got a great case too now, right? So if we write a ticket, we have to make an arrest. We go and say like, well, you know, on Tuesday, we had a conversation. Message isn't getting through. That's why there's laws, right? If we have to be punitive, we will be punitive. So that's two. I don't know if there's a third for you. I mean, this is Vermont. Everybody's got guns, you know, but and somebody asked me this the other day, you know, the Catholic doctrine and all that kind of stuff. This isn't states where that's really, you know, if somebody comes in your house, you don't have the right to just shoot them, right? So from a first responder perspective, that's kind of in the back of your mind, certainly is with me, you know, if I'm going to a situation like that too, but just for the general public, somebody just comes in your house that doesn't give you the green light to shoot them. That's not how it works. But how
Hold them at gunpoint until you get there.
Gray area.
You don't do that, but you have the right to defend yourself. You just have to be able to articulate it, right? Somebody comes in your house and they've got a gun or they've got a knife and they're charging at you, that's a different matter. But if somebody knocks on the door and says, you know, hey, I'm here to sell you something, That doesn't mean, shoot first, ask later, that's not.
I thought that was the first one that got away with that.
But home security stuff is always great. Good lighting, making sure that you have, windows aren't covered up by hedges and things like that. Getting security systems, there are a ton of them out there that are really inexpensive. Getting camera systems are really inexpensive now, and you can monitor them from home. Blankets, I'm not advocating for any particular brand, but I have a Blink camera that watch my dogs. It's very easy. I can yell at them when they're running around the house, right? So things like that are really good deterrents as well, right? Criminals are gonna break into vulnerable targets. They're not gonna go for the 4 to 5 months, right? That's your third thing.
Thanks,
The
Jeff.
problem is we grew up in a community where none of us had to lock our cars or lock our doors. We felt secure and we're losing that.
You are, and everybody is.
Yeah.
And it's tragic and it's horrible, but that is the reality. Yep.
Anyone else from the audience? Perfect.
Okay, so I guess I did
Number
have
first.
one more question. It was just. Where are the points of negotiation and where aren't they in your services? Is
The price is unfortunately not negotiable.
Okay, so 91 is-
We're a not-profit. We don't
Okay.
make money on any of the things, and our bottom line is dangerously thin because of that.
Okay.
And that's why those last 2 paragraphs are included, because
Mhm.
we deal with everything that everybody else in the business will deal with. Healthcare costs are ridiculously high. They're going to go up even higher next year. The challenge with us is that we don't predict that. We can't predict that. Workman's compensation is unbelievably challenging for law enforcement. All liability in law
I would
enforcement
imagine,
insurances are ridiculous. There's one carrier that provides, we don't have competitive, we don't go to State Farm and then the Geico and whatever. We just take the price that they give us. So those are the challenges that we have. We have to be competitive, right? We have to be competitive with our organizations like St. Albans or the state police that can afford to pay high dollars, right? We want to have very good people. We want to have the best people that we can find. And unfortunately, that costs money.
Thank you very much
Thank you.
for your time and thanks.
There's one person in the back. Question.
Yeah, come up, state your name.
Matt Hall, I'm fire department chief. Just a couple of quick questions to tag in on what Ginger said. So regarding law enforcement under your contract, so if you have a certain amount of hours per week, and for example, you were here on patrol, and we had the need for law enforcement for a call, that would fall onto you?
Correct.
Under any jurisdiction, any road in the town of Bakersfield, 108, back roads?
Absolutely.
Okay, so if it's outside of your, let's see if I can explain this, the way I'm thinking it. You have a certain amount of hours per week. For example, you've not met your hours this week, and we have something that we need law enforcement for. Do we have the ability to call you, you come in, and then that works off from the hours on the contract?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Complete flexibility.
If you're above the hours, you've met your set hours per week, and we call, do you still come, or does it fall on VSP?
So in that scenario, right, let's just pretend we had an 8-hour contract.
Okay.
And we made our 8 hours and you said, oh, something's coming up and an election, right? We want to have coverage up here during the election. Can we do that? Sure. Absolutely, we can do that. Yep. We don't have a cap and then we're like, no, sorry, too bad. As long as you got the money, we'll be up here, right? I mean, that's a goofy way of saying it, but that's the reality. So
Same situation with an emergency call.
if we have resources available, absolutely. Yep. Again, we don't do an à la carte thing, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So, right, if there's like.
I didn't, there's something more important going on in
Yep.
some other town, then absolutely.
If I have the resources, we absolutely will come up here for you. Yep.
So per part of the contract, if we were to have a situation that required law enforcement. Would we have the ability to request you before the SP?
Sure. I mean, technically, yes. So, again, let's take that scenario of having an 8-hour contract and then something comes up and you're like, hey, we want the sheriffs up here for a couple of hours to deal with whatever it is, cows on the road, a fire or whatever. And we have the resources available, we'll absolutely come up and do that. So one of the other things, and I think that's kind of where you're going with this is that, and this is one of the great things about having us as a partner is that we might not be able to respond to the issue that time if we're not working that day, okay? Like it's a Tuesday, we're just not working that Tuesday, we met our hours, we're not here. Well, an issue comes up on Tuesday. If it's not something that requires immediate attention, we still can have a conversation about it, you know, we won't, you can't save the call for us, right?
Correct.
Necessarily, well, I shouldn't say, it's not black and white, but if it's, you know, Timmy Johnson spinning out again. And you're like, hey, he's being a problem, we'll address it the next time we're up here, that kind of thing. But if it's like a burglary happens and it's, we're not up here, we can't take it. You know, 2 days later, that kind of thing.
So a scenario such as a medical incident, and you get there and nobody's comfortable. And there's domestic going on. Do we have the ability to request you immediately?
Yes, you can always call us,
Okay.
whether I have the resources available to you. Right now, I would, like, if I've got somebody that's on doing a governor's highway safety detail. And you call up and say, hey, we're going to a medical event and this is a known problem house. And we've been there before and they've been horrible. Can you guys come up? Yep,
So what are your hours? So 3, 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, if this were to transpire, would you have the ability? Or
maybe,
folks on
maybe
staff?
not, again, depending upon scheduling and stuff like that, and if we wanted to get into an arrangement where. You know, we were calling people out of bed, to come up to those kinds of things, I mean, I've got to pay my people to do it, you know, and it's 4 o'clock in the morning, you don't want to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, but that's right, so. That's certainly something that we could do, but again, it's resource dependent, it's.
Let's just throw this out. He's responding, or Ginger's responding to a call. And they call out on their dispatch, shots fired. What's gonna happen?
I'm hoping that I'm hoping you're gonna get a response from everybody.
Thank you. That's what we're looking for.
Yeah, so if I'm sitting in, and this happened in Montgomery. I was at a call in St. Albans and that shooting happened in Montgomery, I went to Montgomery. I didn't wait for somebody to ask me, I was the sheriff then, so they don't need to ask me, but same kind of thing, and we had game wardens, you know.
Border Patrol, state police, they were all there, yeah,
State police are coming, right, everybody's coming, you know, so those kinds of situations, I'm hoping that. You know, that is a call that everybody's gonna respond to, and that if you don't need it, we, you know, we'll go away.
If we were to request you. And you had the ability to come and it, you know, after hours, off hours, what would you expect to be the response time? I know that's kind of a skewed question.
Depends.
Again, it's very subjective, right, but it depends on where my resources are. Yep.
He's got somebody in Georgia and that's the closest one. It's gonna take longer than if they're sitting in
Correct.
Enosburg.
I had somebody in
Yeah,
Enosburg,
yeah.
right, that's an example.
Yeah.
I think the good news is, I will share this with you though, that again, the great thing about our organization, just like the state police, is that we all have take home cars.
Right.
So that allows us to be really, really quick, or a lot quicker than having to go to the station, get a car, put your gear, and then go somewhere, you know, so. And a lot of our folks are spread out, you know, somebody lives here, somebody lives there, so if an emergency came up like that, it's a Sunday afternoon, I could certainly make a phone call. Are they available to come, that kind of thing, yep.
So to look at it from another perspective, we get a call and we know that you're here. We just saw a cruiser go by. Then for sure.
We're coming anyway, absolutely, so
Okay.
you call 911. Well, let me put it, let me.
You're
give you two
dispatched to
scenarios.
central anyways, right?
Correct, you call 911, central gets the call and they look on the sheet and they look on the system and say, oh, we're in Bakersfield, they're gonna dispatch us. So we're going.
Regardless, all right.
We're going, yep.
Okay.
But in the event of a medical call, so this is something that we encourage all of our folks to do, is that if there's a fire call or a medical call, we're gonna go anyway. We're gonna go with you, right? We're not gonna wait for you to be like, hey, can you send the sheriffs over? No, I'm hoping that unless our folks are tied up with something, they're going to the medical call, they're going to the lift assist call, they're going to the fire call.
So if we had a traffic accident, you'd be willing to give us a hand with traffic control, things of that nature, if you were here.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, and it's great that you all do that, and I'll use Fairfax as an example. Their fire department's great at doing that, you know, and so that allows us to do the accident investigations and part of it, but if you just have a fire and it's more of like. You know, maybe it's off 108 and 108's getting backed up, we're there anyway, that's our responsibility, is directing the traffic around that, you know, so. We're gonna work with you and partner, and how can we get your job done easily and safely and efficiently and all of that too, yep. Just like a medical event, I'm hoping, I would always go to medical events, I'm hoping my folks are gonna do that too. If we're not needed, we'll go away,
I've seen them on.
but you always need somebody help carrying a stretcher, you
So
know?
whenever there's a call in Bakersfield, if you're on duty in the town, you will respond
We got
automatically.
Yep, and or here.
Right.
Okay, but we better over here.
Okay, thank you.
And I will share with one thing, I think you and I had that conversation when I was away, but.
Yep.
One of the great things about us too is that we've kept the bureaucracy small. You know, you will call me. You're not gonna call somebody and then call somebody else and then call somebody else. We're not that big. Right? So if you have an issue, you have a concern, you have a need, you're gonna call me directly. You would all have my phone number, my cell number. Everybody in dispatch knows how to get a hold of me. I get phone calls all times. That's not a problem. That's, you know, why I decided to run for this position back when I did, so. But that's a nice advantage too, right? Is that you know, you have an issue. You're like, hey, it's Sunday afternoon and people are being idiots. You just call me.
Okay.
You know, you send me an email, send me a text, call me on the phone, and if I don't catch you live, I'm gonna call you back within an hour. So that's another kind of nice thing about us is that and I'm not saying that to disparage anybody else, but that's just how we kept things very, you know, very, very, very efficient.
Excellent.
Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate your being here at the meeting in person and you've imparted a lot of information and hopefully things go well and we can continue on with this.
Absolutely. You know how to get a hold of me.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
You have a good evening.
Good night.
Mr. Wescombe.
Didn't you want to have him up first?
Oh, we can, yeah.
Because it kind of ties into the sheriff.
What?
Look at James up.
Oh,
You weren't on the list.
But like, we kind of.
But thank you for coming up.
you don't count. You're not.
I know, somebody forgot to put you on the list. He's not on the agenda.
It's okay. I'm used to being forgotten.
And thank you for being here tonight as well. I know you were listening closely and we all took a lot of cues from your nods.
My head shaking.
Yes.
Yeah, well, Sheriff's right about 99.9% of what he said. So the only thing that I would say is different. I mean, I agree with them culture, right? The only thing I would say that doesn't work today that used to when we were kids is you call Mr. and Mrs. Jones because Johnny's being a prick. They go, leave Johnny alone, you're a prick. And that didn't happen back in the day.
No, it
It'd be
didn't.
like Johnny's gonna get a problem.
Right.
So culture is the overwhelming majority of why we're where we are. And he's right that, and we deal with this in the legislature all the time, there's, they're not bad people, they're very well-meaning, thoughtful people. Their version of how you deal with criminal elements and people who are struggling, I think has proven in every jurisdiction that's ever been implemented that it doesn't work. You cannot be soft on crime, tough love works, not abuse, but tough love. Works in your house, it works everywhere. Every jurisdiction that's been soft on drugs, that's been soft on crime, has seen crime and drugs skyrocket. Vermont is no different. We have very lenient laws. They continue to become more and more lenient. The gangs from Connecticut, et cetera, will send younger 20-ish kids to come up here because if you're under a certain age in Vermont, you get a lighter slap on the wrist than if you're above that age. It's one of the highest in the country. You know, so we're extremely lenient on it. You know, he said we have an aggressive DA, that's cool. But a lot of places in Vermont don't. And that breeds a culture. I would say there's a massive problem with mental health, which is understaffed and probably, in my personal opinion, not necessarily dealt with in the right way, not by each provider. His mom's a mental health counselor. There's some very good counselors, but there's a system. I don't think it works. And there's also, no, not to be too specific, but there's rules about, and Vermont's stricter than some, but there's national rules about how many beds you can have in a mental health facility, et cetera. So we don't want to go back to the days of, you know, the institutions as the stereotype of institutions, and my thoughts always been, or you could just make sure the bad stuff doesn't happen, but have enough providers and facilities for people who need to be taken off the street and handled. And in fact, other jurisdictions, like, so Vancouver, for example, is in our legislature is looked at, like in Portland, et cetera, they're looked at as models of how to deal with drugs. But they're all failing. They're reversing course because they're failing. And then you look and it's like, well, they got their cues from certain European countries, Scandinavian countries. Well, they have certain things that we don't have and that Canada doesn't have. For example, years and years ago, a couple decades ago in Massachusetts, it's the wrong state, North Carolina, they had a law where if you were a mom, for example, on drugs, they were able to take you, or they thought they were able to. They'd take you and put you in a facility so that your child would not be born drug dependent. They were sued. They lost, not constitutional. Certain other countries in Scandinavia, for example, they are able to do that. But if you don't have the full realm, and I'm not advocating for anything that's against the Constitution, we have it for a reason. But they are able to do certain things that we can't do. So if people look at them and say, well, they do 1, 2, and 3, we're only going to do 2 and 3, but we're not doing 1. Well, it's not going to work. You're going to have to figure out what other system you can put in place, or what other part you can put in place. 2 and 3 aren't going to work. They're, you know what I mean? Without being, but as he said, I know I'm going to ramble on this, but he mentioned it's very hard to be a cop.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be a cop. Well, not nobody, but the quotation mark, nobody. Cops are under attack all the time. Like you have one bad cop, and it's like the way we feel about a four-wheeler, right? The one bad four-wheeler, we put them on. People don't want the abuse that comes with being a cop. They want to do the job. They want to protect people. But when they go and protect somebody and then they're looking at criminal charges, not the ones that are like, that's always happened. But today it's almost like certain people are looking to go after a cop, and cops like, a person wants to be a cop's like, why am I putting my life in jeopardy only to be screwed because I tried to help somebody? So whether somebody does value judgment or whatever, that's just a fact of how they feel. Getting more people in law enforcement. The other part that he talked about, and we've talked about for the last 6 years, is the sheriff's office by the Constitution. They don't provide services to everyone. They don't have money. That's not how it's worked. Now, do some of us, and I think we would agree, think that maybe there should be a funding mechanism that they are paid as a collective?
Yeah.
I think so. There is a study committee right now that Senator Norris is on to look at a strong county government. Vermont's one of the few states in the country that doesn't have county governments. You'll have people on one side that are like, we already have too much government, and I understand that because I'm usually one of them, but it's not effective not to. And to take it away from law enforcement, for example, when the ARPA dollars came out, we had a hard time dealing with ARPA because the money was released to county governments. We had to do a go around, so that's not to do with law enforcement, but there's a lot of benefits that can be had for county government. And I don't know what their study committee is going to come up with, and if it has anything to do with the sheriff, I think it should. I think that it should be like some other states, not every other state, because they're all different, where the sheriff is paid from a collective pool. I mean, we still have to pay for it, by the way. It's not like there's a tree out back, but that it would be paid out of a collective pool, and they evenly patrol the county. That's what I would like to see. It's not going to happen tomorrow, and it might not happen at all. And by the way, I did invite the senators, but I found out about this late, and then they found about it even later, and they both had engagements. So one of them's out of state. But I'd like to see that happen, and I'll talk to Senator Norris, and find out what exactly is being discussed in the study committee. It's something I think I'm one of the few people on my side of the aisle that likes the idea, but I personally think it is a good idea. And like I said, go back to culture. I can always bump on culture. How you change that, it has nothing to do with cops, and it has nothing to do with firefighters. It has nothing to do with the legislature. It's parents and community members, and going back to just being I want to say good people, because there's a lot of good people today. But when I'm going to just use my own experience. So I went into teaching after I got out of the army, ran some businesses and stuff. I don't want to teach. I was going to be a teacher. My first day at a school, won't name the name. This kid was really bad. And his parents were called and I'm like new teacher and I'm like, boy, I'm gonna see something, right? You know, I'm gonna, like the principal's gonna tell his parent, or the parents gonna come in, like what I got treated like when I was a kid and all of us. And you know, like, mom's here and like, oh crap, don't tell dad. And the parents started yelling and screaming at the principal. Now this is 20 years ago. And I'm like, well, that's gotta be a one-off. Wasn't a one-off. I worked in schools for the next 15 years and it was always the same. It got worse and it's worse today. And until that changes, even no matter how many cop presences makes a difference, but that's a Band-Aid on a problem. Until those problems happen where a parent goes, no, Johnny's not an innocent kid. Jill's not an innocent kid. They could be a good kid, but Johnny and Jill did something wrong and start going back to the day where everybody disciplines their children and changes the culture and we all hold each other accountable. We're gonna keep going down a bad slope. So that's not a select board problem.
No, it's,
But it is a real problem.
it's a spreading problem. I mean, I was in a meeting with Tim Smith last week.
Mayor Smith, that thing or different?
Yep.
Yeah.
And in his role as chair of FCIDC. And he was mentioning that in the past year, they've seen an epidemic of problems, drug-related problems in the city, and it's way worse. He's only been mayor for what, 8 years now? And he said it's 10 times worse than when he started. And in the last year, it's escalated to he's worried about it. It's not just us, it's everybody. And personally, I think it starts in people being part of the process. It starts at the polls.
Mhm.
People need to participate.
Mhm.
Voices need to be heard.
And that's an important thing. And I always say this, and if anybody's ever on my Facebook, they'll see when I do post something, I don't usually post like partisan stuff, because I hate that stuff. But I'll post like nobody seems to get, like in my job, nobody seems to care about the who's and the whys. They all want to know, like, well, what's it going to cost? Or they're mad that a policy doesn't align with their values. I go, okay, cool. But do you know why that bill was put that way? Why is that policy? Who was involved in it? What is their thinking?
Mhm.
What were the conversations behind the closed doors, so to speak, or even in the hallways, whatever it is? Did the people who have the power, because I don't like using the modern terminologies because I think this is like way overused, but like the gatekeepers. Everywhere you go, there's a gatekeeper, and they're not necessarily in charge. And like the speaker is not necessarily the gatekeeper. There's other people. Who's shutting down conversations? Who's shutting down dialogue? Shutting down dialogue is probably the biggest problem we have, other than like this stuff with parents and like making sure your kids behave. Because compared to when we started in this field, or just when we're younger, more and more people, and including in our age groups, cannot handle having an open and honest dialogue. As soon as they hear something that they disagree with, they're either flying through the roof, or they suddenly have a phone call or something, some other version, or even the nice ones, which is the hardest ones to deal with, honestly. Well, you got to agree with me. Well, I don't agree with you. Look, let's have a conversation. No, I can't have this conversation with you. You know, and that causes a lot of problems. You cannot solve problems if you can't have a conversation about it. And I always joke with people that you can take, in my role, I have to care about parties, right? You can take 3 people from one party and 3 people from another and put them in, all the party and all the party. And you can have them put their top 3 solutions to a problem. They could write the same exact thing on their little whiteboards, but as soon as they come out, the first person to say that, the other side's going to say is wrong. And that's not just a political thing. It's a people thing. It's all over the place. It's not everybody, but I can tell you in my experience in 25 years of public service that it's more people than not, and it's growing. And if you can't have those conversations that are uncomfortable, that you don't agree with, and to say, throw every solution on the wall, like we were all taught to brainstorm when we were kids, right? Brainstorming, you throw everything up there.
Yeah.
But today you start to brainstorm. Nope, that's a bad idea. That's a bad idea. Nope, I don't want that. Like
Look at it.
you can't look at it. And so how are you going to solve a problem? And the reason I'm bringing that up is because this overall problem, including the drugs, the crime, and many other issues, all have to have those conversations in order to solve them. And we can't because so many people don't want to. Or like I said, the old days, sound like an old timer. Should brought my cane. But anyway, you know, you could say to Mrs. Smith, hey, Johnny's being bad. And they're like, okay, I'll talk to Johnny. But it's the same conversation with that parent now, right? Don't mess with Johnny. You're a piece of whatever, right? So then that permeates every walk of life. And that's why we go backward instead of forward. Not why you brought me here, but I like get philosophical. So, but,
Understood. Rather than hold Johnny accountable, you blame the teacher for him not
Yeah.
getting lessons.
Exactly right. And it's a problem and it's getting worse. And it has nothing to do with any of the presidential stuff in the last 8 years, which people like to blame on. It's way before that it started. It's just getting worse. It's a trend that just continues to grow. And until we are able to look, a matter of fact, I'm a very rational person. I can have a conversation with anybody as long as you're not calling me like names and stuff. I'll be like, what do you want to talk about? I don't care if you're talking about, you know, one side of the political spectrum or the other. I'm cool. Whatever. We can disagree. Well, show me your thought process.
Yeah.
But I had a conversation that I didn't want to have, and I was on a trip recently, political trip, and the other person she's very nice, but she's like, I can't have this conversation with you just because I was like, she brought something up. She doesn't like one political candidate a lot. And I'm like, well, why? I can't even have this conversation with you. And that's indicative of society. Like, you can't even tell me why you don't like somebody, you know, and it has nothing to do with presidential. It's the mindset that it permeates to every other walk of life. Or the number of times in Montpelier, I'd be having a conversation with, I don't know why I did that. Like, it's like, I'm tell someone, I'm gonna text them and I'm like this. When you're having a conversation in a hallway about a bill and the person is very interested in what you have to say, as long as like you're saying things they agree with, and then you say, but here's the other side. Oh, got a phone call. And if people like don't think that happens, I'm telling you, it happens all the time. And like that's how bad policy happens. And bad policy is why you don't have enough money for cops. It's why you have weak DAs or whatever, state's attorneys. It's why you have laws that, you know, are a little softer on crime than we would like to see. It's why we go down there and we'll pass a law and we'll say, some of us will, not just me, it could be anybody, will say, hey, listen, here's some unintended consequences, which are going to happen. And you'll have that gatekeeper crowd that says, no, you're just being a fear monger, blah, blah, blah. And the next year, without fail, a year or 2 years down the road, usually a year, we're back fixing that problem because people walk around like this. And that's pertinent because it affects all this stuff. You cannot solve these problems until people are willing to talk. I don't know how to get people to come to the table and talk, but
This country was founded on compromise. It was founded on a group of people who sat down and discussed what the nation was going to become. And they all made compromise.
they all did.
It was all about give and take. There's nothing like that anymore.
Nope. And people are shocked when I tell them how bad Montpelier is. They think it's different. It's not. There's a saying that we do things the Vermont way. So in other words, not as partisan and whatever. It's not true. There's a public shield, but it's not true. It's very partisan. And there's very, like I said, there's some gatekeepers who aren't. There's actually ones in independent, but just have the power and like people will shut down. I don't, because I don't really like, you're not gonna intimidate me, you know, like I'm scared of snakes, you know what I mean? But like people, they like, what are you gonna do? But there's a lot of people you would think that have power, that as soon as a certain person, and it's not just one person, but in this case, it's like a certain person starts getting belligerent, everybody goes, it's not worth dealing with that, and walks away. And I'm like, no, your job is to deal with that. So, and I'm not trying to make everybody like gloomy about their government, but it's not anywhere near as shiny as people think. And that's why we have the problems we have. So
You and I were talking earlier before the meeting about the bail bonds. Is there anything being done, the bonds and the bail? And how they've kind of softened it over the,
Oh, yeah.
are they looking this year at all at discussing anything about, look, I know the governor said that, but I'm just wondering at the legislative side of things, are you guys looking at maybe it isn't working?
I can talk to the people that are on the judiciary, like
Yeah.
Tom Oliver, who's, former.
Right.
I can talk to them or Bob and they would know. But that is a problem.
Yeah.
I mean,
definitely is.
no bail. And
They're
there's people
citing everybody, so they get cited and they're back on.
there's people that have, I think, I forget the exact number, but like. There's a woman that had like 90 or some ridiculous thing on the street. There's other states that are worse, but like that should never happen. Never happen.
Is the policy that I heard, I don't know if it's real or not. They have to be caught 3 times in like a 48-hour period for them to actually be detained for any sort of thing.
Sure. I'm not sure. There's no law that says that, I
Okay.
believe, but
That was one of the things that I'd heard, but
also. I have to take Sheriff Grismore's word on this because I don't deal with the state's attorney. And he is fairly new. But there are other places that I won't name that are in Vermont that the cops aren't going to do very much because as soon as they arrest them, they're just walk right back out. Right? So as long as that's happening, the cop can arrest you all day long. But if you're not getting prosecuted and put in jail or facing some kind of fine, serious fine, but I guess I would illuminate what I'm saying is a problem by saying this. It's not a law enforcement example, but I think it's indicative of how people think about these issues. So we were doing a bill this year to ban flavored tobacco. Okay. A bill that would have went through if menthol wasn't included in it. It would have been a law today. That's neither here nor there. But in the stated goal changed, by the way, but the stated goal was to keep vapes out of the hands of children. So every single, which by the way, it's illegal for children to have them under 21 because we raised the law, even though we didn't need to because the federal government was doing it 2 months later. But I asked every single person who came to testify to my committee, do you support stronger penalties for people who supply to children? Every single person, including school counselors, etc., said no. That education was the answer. When I told some teachers that were really mad about this, and like a month or so ago, they were like on my Facebook, and and I told them that they're like, "What?" I said, "Oh, yours was one of them." But every one of them said, "Well, education is the answer." I mean, no, it's not. If somebody is caught, if you really believe, and there's a reason I'm saying this, because it has to do with their mindset about all these issues. Because that's how they feel about all these other issues, is education's the answer. If you do not have strict penalties for somebody to supply something to somebody else, whether it's drugs or tobacco, in this case to minors, or beer to minors, they're going to keep doing it. You can talk to them. Lance gives me my kid beer. He's 27, but you could do it. But anyway, pretend that you have a 12-year-old. And you give them a tobacco or whatever. And I go to you and say, Lance, you're really not supposed to do that, man. You're like, all right, cool, James. And I walk away. You're going to do it again because there's no penalty. That's just but that's how they deal with all these issues. And they don't mean ill, they mean well. But the policies fail.
Yeah.
Over and over, every single jurisdiction has ever been tried.
It needs to be a consequence.
There has to be a consequence. And again, there's a difference between reasonable consequences in the old days of being on a chain gang. Makes for a good movie, bad policy. But there's a happy medium. Just like when you discipline your children is different than beating your children, right? Like there's a difference. And some people don't see that difference. And it leads to very bad policies. It leads to these issues. And that's not to take away from the very real issues of mental health. I don't have all the answers to that, but it's for whatever reason is worse today than it used to be. I have theories, but I'm not a licensed counselor, so I'm going to share them. Get the license taken away. But it's a bigger problem. And so and those things lead into, if you have severe mental health issues and they're untreated or whatever, a lot of trauma issues, you're more likely to go down these paths. And we don't have in my opinion, we don't have the systems to take care of that. And I don't think we address it properly. But that's an opinion. So, I don't have enough information. YouTube hasn't given me enough information on that yet. But, I do ask about it all the time and, but those two issues right there. And maybe they're all connected, but, to your specific issue of needing law enforcement, your only solution right this moment is to, hire either the sheriff, St. Albans Town, or one of the other sheriffs. VSP is now coming. They don't have enough people.
No.
Like my perfect world, he mentioned highway patrol. I personally think that the DMV should be expanded. They should be the highway patrol. And the state police should be taken off of me, but we don't have enough personnel. But I think that should be a structure too.
It's been said the St. Albans Barracks has just 4 troopers.
It might be true. And they don't, even if they had 6, it's still not enough.
Still not enough. Yeah.
12's not enough. And like you said, you used to be able to, have your pick, basically, like people will come to apply for these jobs, especially VSP was a great job to have, and we had people from other states. First of all, like in some of these other states back in the day, you had to be like 6'2" and like
Mhm.
this big guy. I mean, you really did. And so like a lot of the people who want to be state cops will come here. We had so many people applying for, but that's not the case anymore. And some of the problems, no amount of money is gonna solve as far as their part. No, you could give a cop twice as much money, but if they think that them responding to a call and something going haywire, that they're gonna end up in jail themselves. So anyway.
So is the legislature contemplating addressing the issue?
Well, that's what I'm gonna find out from Bob, Senator Norris, about the study committee. I don't know what they're actually discussing as far as the county government goes. But that would be, one issue. One place where the sheriff issue could possibly be dealt with, but I gotta talk to him, about that. As far as VSP, I mean, I don't know if this really is a solution as far as getting.
If you don't have the manpower, you don't have the manpower.
You can't get the manpower, people aren't applying.
Yeah.
And they don't pay for it, you know what I mean? So it's not like, it's not necessarily an issue. Like I said, I'm double is probably crazy, but you could pay them $20,000-$30,000 more and they get paid pretty good and overtime is there. But it's the other issues.
Yeah.
And it's not the danger that goes in, like these people that go to those professions, a lot of, like when I was in the military, I didn't go because of the money. Like if you're gonna put me in harm's way, that's cool, whatever. They're not scared of that. It's the other stuff. The backlash from the community, the risk of being literally put in jail for defending yourself, or somebody pulls a gun in a house and you shoot them, and it turns out that person, rightly maybe thought that their house would be invaded. I'm not saying it's right, but anything goes sideways, and there's so much more likelihood that a cop is going to be prosecuted for things that they didn't do maliciously.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if you're,
Split
back
second
off,
decision.
you all seen the movies where they had to go, New York City's taking out all those guys who are on a drug task force back in the 70s because they were all drug dealers. That's different.
Right.
But for regular work that they're not doing anything maliciously and they just got caught in a bad situation, and they got a risk going to jail for life. And the way community and people, a lot of people look at them, that's not a calling card for people. So
We all watch their cop shows and everything ends up well, and the bad guy is always caught and incarcerated, but that's not how it's working.
So Jan has a question.
I'm just curious.
Jan,
Cops being.
come up to a mic, tell us who you are. No, not to interrupt you, but no one can hear you on the recording, so come up to the mic, tell us who you are.
Janet Hudson, okay, and I'm doing a lot of talk about. It sounds like the differentiate local cops in Vermont are doing wrong and they're ending up in jail and being prosecuted. So I'm just wondering where those numbers are coming from. I do know nationally that it seems to be happening, but what I'm hearing, and I may be mishearing, is that here in Vermont, if cops are doing their job and they're arresting people with drugs or people who are breaking the law, and voices about shop, that they are being prosecuted and they are having a big backlash.
So I'm just wondering if you have the numbers.
No, that's not what I said either. It's about, yeah, it's an overall thing, but there have been cops that have been prosecuted in Vermont, not like, not, they're not going to play.
Not large.
No, not like that, but like a cultural thing isn't necessarily like, just in Vermont, people in general, you look at the overall climate and it could happen, right? So whether warranted or not warranted, people have a real fear that that could happen. And even if it's not prosecutions, there are definitely, there's definitely a subculture even in Vermont that is very anti-police. You can go to Burlington and there's they're starting to turn around because they got a lot of problems. Now they're kind of looking at maybe we made some mistakes in mistreating our cops. And that would be the greatest example of somewhere who has mistreated cops and made people not want to be in law enforcement. Burlington would be a great example, wouldn't be Franklin County. But they have, and so again, now they're turning around a little bit and being like, wait, maybe we need you after all. Well, they shouldn't have, treated them like garbage to begin with. And they're good people. They were, again, if somebody's doing something wrong, they should be held accountable, like really, because that's bad for a profession. But, you're gonna be laid off, or, you're looking like, we deal with it all the time, but like Burlington's a great example. I'm not afraid to say it. Everybody knows that they have a very anti-cop culture in Burlington.
Yeah.
And to this day, but all it's resulted in is you can go downtown and every single parking garage, right at the gate of the parking garage, and they're dealing drugs. They're dealing drugs on Church Street.
Yeah.
And it's everywhere. And I have friends that are cops that are down there. They videotape it. Well, I've seen all the videotapes. I've been down there myself, and just in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
And so they have problems. When was can you think of in your lifetime to the last several years where you go like the amount of shootings and stabbings as have gone on? Is it New York City? No. But for what Burlington was, it's a big problem.
Burlington just had that shootout down outside the bank.
Yeah.
In the last 6 months, they've had, I work down in South Burlington. So, and one of my customers is constantly sending me pictures and telling me stuff who has his office out of Burlington. And he's leaving Burlington. As a matter of fact, that whole office group, they're running out of Burlington. They're not walking, they're breaking their contracts and leaving because of the crime that's down in Burlington.
Yeah.
And this is broad daylight. We're talking, 10 o'clock in the morning, they're shooting at each other across the street because somebody's they're living on the street, and whatever mental issue or drug issue they have, they get into it with someone else and they're shooting at each other.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's becoming commonplace. You're going back to the old West, right? You're going back to the Wild West kind of days, but
It's very common, and you take it, and if you don't have the law enforcement and stuff up here, but we do have the same kind of problems though.
Mhm.
We have, the criminal activity. And again, to say, if a cop is doing something wrong, or a public official's doing something wrong, they should be punished.
Yeah.
Because it's bad for everybody. But when it's become to what it has become for an awful lot of people, as far as like, they're just really disdain for cops. People are just gonna be like, I don't want to do it. It's not something I want to go through. It's not something I want to put my family through.
well, I could tell you a lot of people up here want to bring the police presence up here.
Yep.
The question is November 5th, who shows up and how they vote.
Mhm.
There's a huge concern, as you heard from earlier with the sheriff and all, there's a huge concern about safety up here, and people are getting to the point that it's either going to be police that are going to do this, or they're going to do it themselves to a degree. I mean, they were chasing a guy down the road in their vehicle to get him out of town
Yeah.
3 weeks ago.
Wasn't
Yeah.
it the number of people, I have a friend that lives in Heinsberg. She was telling us a story the other day. Mirrors a story that happened to me just 2 weeks ago. Middle of the night, and you guys know where I live. Middle of the night, I'm like sleeping. All of a sudden, my dog's going nuts. I'm like, what the heck is wrong with you? Then you startle because the dog's going nuts, right? So then I look out my window. There's a dude standing on my porch. I'm like, what? I look at the time, 12:30. Dude's high as can be, cracked right out, and shaking up the storm. And, you know, he was decent. I know who he is, but he is in that community. He didn't know I lived there though. He's like, oh, I didn't know you lived here. So he wasn't coming to ask me for something. But anyway, 12:30 at night. And my friend had the same thing happen in Heinsberg. And you guys know, or one of your community members who was babysitting and that was in Fairfield and somebody walked right in the house.
Right.
And then when the son gets home and he's like, kind of got the guy kind of cornered and stuff to like, stay away from him. He's like, I'm not staying away from him. I'm gonna make sure I keep an eye on him. So that he doesn't get an axe or anything else.
Right.
So, and it's much more prevalent, never happened, never, you know, before 5, 6, 7 years ago. It's become prevalent. So anyway, your answer is to hire somebody, and hopefully the townspeople support that. Because if they're having problems with criminal activities, that's the only solution right now. It's a Band-Aid to what the culture that needs to change,
Yeah.
but that's your solution right now.
So you feel that we are pursuing the correct path?
You are pursuing the right correct path, and I would love to see more communities do it, because as the sheriff noted, when one community puts pressure on it, all they do is go somewhere else. You know, which helps your problem, like you make, you know, but everybody needs to be in it together, and it needs to be like holistic. Everybody needs enforcement. And everybody needs to be peace presence, and our solution, I think we agree with, like, it should be a county problem, but that's not how our government's set up. So,
Okay.
I would urge you guys in your community to get a contract. I would probably go more than 8 hours, but it's a good place to start. You know, choose your hours wisely. You guys know your community better than anybody else, where's your biggest problems? But that's where I would start. And as the sheriff noted, but asked the question about, enforcement outside of those hours. I think you guys got it, yeah, he'll come. But it's gonna cost you above the contract, but because you have a contract, he'll come, but it's gonna be extra money.
I think Nikki has a question.
Oh, not a question.
sorry.
No,
Statement.
actually, I was just gonna encourage us to sort of wrap this up because we've got other people here, but I was gonna suggest we've got one of our last items here is we need to have informational meetings because of this measure that's going on the ballot in November.
Right.
It might be helpful to ask the sheriff if he'd come back and maybe if he would be available too.
Or at least join in Zoom.
If he's willing.
I'm willing, I mean, I'm gonna check an offer to your community other than say that.
I think the community have questions and I think
Yeah.
it's, I mean, I've learned a lot tonight.
I'll try to, and I'll, if I know in advance, I need more, not for me.
Yeah.
But to be able to get, especially Senator in ours.
Right.
You know, first of all, he deals with judiciary and the
Mhm.
Senate, but also he's a sheriff, and plus years in the
Yeah.
cop before that. His knowledge on this.
Would be
very
useful.
beneficial. Or even, I don't know, Tom can come, it's not his community, but he is on judiciary, you know, Oliver. And he's obviously former sheriff too. Those guys would be good to invite as well, but some people need more advanced knowledge than I do.
Yeah.
Me, I got.
Well, and that was just, we had a sort of last minute, oh, wouldn't it be a good idea to see if you could come? So that was, we're very grateful that you were able to.
Yeah, no problem. And then,
Did we pick the dates for the informational meeting?
So the last thing I have is if there is the opportunity for testifying before any of your committees in regards to subjects like this from the town,
yeah,
please ask us.
yeah, well, that's.
We can give some input that way.
Yeah, I'll talk to the delegation, I'm
Right.
the chair of the county delegation, so when legislature gets back in, I'll put the ear in the, so it'd be like Tom Oliver, he's the person in our county that's on judiciary. My committee isn't necessarily, well, I deal with we do deal with drugs and things like that, but not the way judiciary does, but I will make sure that if there's something that I keep you posted. So that leads me to what I was gonna say, and I was gonna already schedule. So during the session, if you guys wanna talk about something that's pertinent, like today, you know, now like, hey, what's going on? But like, if there's something that that you think you saw that's going on that might be relevant to you, or if I see something that could be, usually I don't deal with a lot of stuff that's relevant to the towns, most of the stuff really. But feel free to contact me. It's more likely, especially in the winter, that I would come on Zoom.
Right.
Yeah, but you can always call me. You can always call me. Yeah. And I'll try not to talk as much.
Oh, I don't know. Business picked up?
No, it has not. And well, it has to some degree, but not enough. We shortened our hours. It's not, it's funny because my business people and I talk about this all the time. It's not funny at all. But, everybody looks when the business person's gone on a cruise, which I can't afford to go on a cruise, but they do. But when you're ready to jump off a bridge because you can't pay bills, nobody ever seems to care about that. These small businesses live on tight margins.
Yeah.
We lost, most days we were between 1/3 and 1/2 business. Now we lost 1/3 or a half. We were at 1/3 or a half the entire time that bridge was down. And you have people, like I was telling you, they complain, they're like, oh, my commute is so much longer. I said, you can miss 5 minutes. I'm losing $80,000 to $90,000 a month.
Yeah.
You know, and we already on tight margins. You know, so, but the businesses bounce back and we're like half. So we're probably at 2/3 of what we normally were doing. Because people get into a routine, and I was saying, we don't have the best and brightest of stuff, like, we don't have a canopy. We're working on it. But that's $200,000.
Yeah.
You know, the project that I need to do to stay open, like, for a long term. Is $650,000 for a little tiny mom and pop gas station. Everybody from Timothy Valley to my accountant says that is not feasible for that business. So the thing that we're doing that will keep us in business for a handful of years is $180,000. To be short term.
Yeah.
You know, and how we're gonna pay for it is still a question. But that's the only other option is to shut. And we got too much business to shut. It is what it is, and hopefully it brings in, you know, more business, because we're trying to get two pumps instead of one. We have to fix we're gonna be shut down for a while, because we have to take the entire tops of all of our tanks off.
Yeah.
And fix all the stuff on top. We're hoping that our partners and in the fuel business will supply a canopy. But they have in the past for any wood contracts with other people, but that would help with business and new lights, you know, we have paid the whole driveway, which is like $70,000 after this is all torn up, you know, because you're gonna do it. So yeah, being a business owner in a small business stinks. My quality of life is in the last 10 years has gone down. I made good money, my ex-wife made good money, we lived a dream. The community wanted this business, nobody else could afford to be in this business. We said, you know what, we'll do it. And it has been the hardest 10 years of my life of 50 years. Every day, I've worked, my mom too, worked for 10 years in that store. For no paycheck. If I didn't get my money from the VA for as seriously as I got injured in the military, I would not be able to work at a store. Nobody could, because a lot of money goes through, a lot of money literally goes
There's
through.
a reason why we don't have one in Bakersfield.
Yeah, you cannot survive in those stores. And like Carl Stone told me when I got into it, it's like you have to have a second source of income. The store itself will not pay.
Yeah.
And we knew that it was gonna be tight. We knew we were never going to make a profit for ourselves. But as bad as it really is way different. And you know, so when somebody complains about a 5-minute extra thing, and I very told you words.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear it. So, but anyway, thank you for asking. Thank you for bringing up the
I wish you luck with it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Take it easy, Chase.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Thank you for coming.
No problem.
All right. This time for serious, Brian.
Sure.
I'm pretty sure,
I'm gonna get halfway there, you know.
maybe 2/3 this time.
That's sort of walk faster.
You walk faster. God, it's been so long, I forgot we want to talk to you about. We're good, dude. What his plan is.
Oh, that, yeah.
So, and I kind of wish I hadn't bumped you down on the list, because I feel like this is gonna be a fairly quick conversation. When we did the hiring, we kind of left it up in the air as to, you know, how long you were committed for, what capacity you were committed for, and we were just looking for an update, if you had one, as to what you were thinking. Now, I know, because I worked with you at another job, that you haven't taken that job, so I'm assuming the commitment's a little bit more than you had first anticipated.
I would like the full-time job.
You would.
Perfect.
Good, perfect.
It makes our life easier.
Easy one.
And you look so good in the truck today.
I know. It doesn't matter where it is.
Now, I guess we'll wait until we get to roads, but that's gonna be completely dependent on your supervisor's
Yeah.
review of you.
That's right.
I promise you.
He's shaking his head.
No, that's great. That's what we're
Hoping to hear.
hoping to hear. You know, the applications haven't been rolling in for that position, so.
Great.
We're kind of hoping that was your stance at this point, so.
Thank you.
Right, the only question I have, I mean, you guys have seen what I've been able to do. Now, what do you guys have to offer to me?
Smile and a handshake.
Thank you.
Pat on the back, yeah.
I guess I would say in what terms are you referring to? Are you talking like benefits? Are you talking?
Well, I don't know exactly what the benefits are that you offer. What can you offer for me to keep me here, I guess? I mean, it's a job market out there.
Yep, yep.
So does this need to be an executive session
Yeah, this is something we
conversation?
can't talk about on the floor.
And maybe not for tonight, but
Probably not for tonight. So, we could set up a separate meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, behind closed doors to negotiate that, but there is,
To be fair.
No, Joe,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, well, yeah, I mean,
That makes sense.
yeah. Yep,
My job comes with a badge. Great, I heard a rumor.
We can switch that one right now.
yeah.
yeah.
Be a special meeting, does it?
Yeah, it would definitely be a special meeting. It doesn't,
Next month.
I was gonna say, I hate to throw out dates because
I don't have my phone.
between my kids and
Right.
Oh,
I'm going in like 4 different directions right now with sports, so, I mean. Yeah. So.
I can.
some of us want.
That's like saying Friday night, that does. Okay, so we can be in touch, we can talk about it.
You know where I am on list tonight.
Oh, yeah, right.
Maybe that.
Yeah. Well, that may be,
That may be.
What time do you get here on Wednesday? 7?
Yeah, usually between 6:30 or something.
So maybe we could do a 6 o'clock on a Wednesday, or it depends on,
Right.
you know, on the.
I'm fine with that, yeah.
I could, as of right now, I could do the 18th, which is next Wednesday.
I could
I
do
think
that.
I could too. Maybe.
So we confirm that tomorrow, the
Next.
18th.
What are we talking about?
Special meeting to discuss
That, what date are you talking about?
18th, Wednesday.
I guess Wednesday's better than Thursday, but it needs to be 7 or 7:30.
He starts,
He starts,
his other job.
The owner flying up,
Okay,
for the 18th and the 19th, and I don't know if, you know. What's happening, I won't be up in the area until at least 7. How about?
what time did you say? You start out with, have you,
Then my schedule is posted 7 to
7 to 9?
Yeah,
Have you
oh,
been,
for here, you mean?
9.
have you been fairly steady? I don't feel like it's off. I don't feel like it was, no,
I mean, I don't even wanna say 7, that's bad, the day's bad for me, the guy's coming up.
okay.
So 18th is bad for me, the 19th is bad, I don't need to be.
18th's bad, 19th's worse.
19th impossible, I won't
I
be
mean-
home till late, I got all the customers coming in.
Well, Wednesday, the 25th, I'm also available. No,
That's open.
the 25th,
The
that's the
following
following,
I
Wednesday.
think I can do that.
Yeah.
because I know Wednesdays work best for you. I don't know.
I'm-
Thank God for my wife and her apps that she puts on my phone that tell me what I'm doing.
this is old school.
They have this new thing called Fan Cal. You can put it on there, you can put your husband's information. Oh, it's great.
Should we talk in the 25th now?
25th.
What time?
Well, if he's gonna start at, he's gotta start at 7, so
I can be here around, I come right from work, so 6 or.
let's go 6 then.
Or 6:30, is it gonna take more than a half hour?
Depends on how miserable he
If we
is.
do 6:30, then it runs right to 7.
6:30 on the 25th.
6:30?
6:30 on the 25th. Tammy, you got that down? just making sure. Okay,
Warn it as an executive session meeting, please,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Personnel. Personnel, right?
Personnel, yep.
yep,
Wednesday.
told you yours was gonna be quick. I think it kind of make, feel bad for making you sit through all the other stuff, but
You been here? for
Thank you,
that?
Brian.
Well, we lost
yes,
it.
we had the library. They're
We
gone now.
lost the library. But that's okay.
We have lost the, that's because they weren't here. They were here, but we were discussing other stuff. Yeah. Okay, Alex isn't here. Roads. Mac,
I got one question on the road.
Bring it on up. Okay.
Where are we on the $44,000 repair of the truck? Where is that at?
so
I
we
wasn't here.
had discussed that, and that's why we got the equipment repair fund update.
Yeah. Actually
And
looking at
we
repair.
don't really have a choice at this point.
Okay, no, that's what I want.
Just with the update that Matt gave us at the last meeting.
Yeah.
Repairs at this point, he's outsourced, or not outsourced, he's located a couple used parts, right? Haven't heard back from that, so he's looking into
Okay,
less expensive parts
okay.
to make the repairs that'll hopefully,
Let's get us another year.
yeah,
Or two.
yeah.
Okay.
No, his truck, one of them, thank you,
Oh, I'm sorry.
is actually the one that's up for repair or up for renewal.
I was gonna say, there's one truck where we committed, right?
Mhm. Yeah, don't wanna-
It's in, but it had to go.
Well, no, the four-wheel drive.
Gave one of these to Lance earlier.
I feel we should fix the emissions problem. Whatever it costs, and then we'll work a little by little on
Yeah.
the other things they peg that are uninspectable that I think are not a major problem. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, that makes
We can
sense.
do that over here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And probably.
I agree.
Some of the parts we do have already.
Okay.
How much will the emissions bit
It was
be?
like 20,
Yeah,
about 20,000.
and that was on the tandem, right?
No,
That was on the baby dump. Okay,
That was the 44,000 that we were looking at.
Yeah.
Ordered
So that would be that part of.
now,
That eats up the whole equipment repair fund. then.
plus, yeah,
No, he's saying 22 just eats the whole repair fund.
right, but then you also have the emissions issue on the tandem.
Right,
Right.
but with that FEMA money, if we do the FEMA money minus the paving, we still got 38, almost.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Okay.
add that in there.
I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
Yep.
that's kind of a,
I think fix both. I agree.
so I guess,
That can fix both those problems and still leave the
A little more.
22 in the
Yep.
repair.
okay, so you're saying leave that money there.
That's what I was,
Okay.
things are gonna come up.
Yep, no, I guess my next question would be, and this is a board and Matt question, is do we think bringing that up to 35 is enough
No,
with the aging equipment? I mean, we're trying to get the equipment.
I think you need increase. It's just, I'm not sure what.
How long's it been
increase to, yeah.
35?
well, that's the problem. Everything's
years.
so darn expensive. You go 45, that may be not enough.
50,000 might not be enough.
Right, well, and again, it all
We
depends
spent
on
that
what
much on that.
happens.
Right.
Right.
But with these emission systems in these trucks, they're not lasting. The government is not doing anything to make the manufacturers fix the problem.
No.
Other than charging for the repairs.
Yeah.
Or
For
total
fix.
replacement.
Yeah. I'm still 100% behind the fact that it might be a government conspiracy, but.
I'll
That's-
argue with that.
Well, I mean, where they're pushing electric and all of a sudden they made the diesel. Well, I mean, they're pushing electric vehicles extremely heavy.
Yeah.
And now they've put restrictions on the diesels, which have made them,
Prohibitively expensive.
yeah.
So I know this is kind of
That's
like
what we are driving
a big question, because I already know half the answer, but why, I don't even want to say it, but why not just go to gas versus diesel?
No way, no way.
Can't push it, can't
No.
push it.
Wouldn't last.
You couldn't put that payload on a gas job and pull any of these hills.
No.
I mean, back in the old days, back when you probably started here, we probably had 2 gas trucks.
Started back here.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah.
Triceratops was a bulldozer.
Yeah.
Ah,
Oh, Fred,
and then Fred.
Barney was his coworker.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, gas, they don't even make a gas job that is that size. Even if you go to like a 1-ton pickup. That, you know, that you could put a sander in, it's gonna be a gas job or a diesel because it's gonna have dualies and they don't even make a gas.
Some of the
Dually.
ambulances have gone to gas and they're going back to diesel.
Yeah.
Because the gas.
Yeah.
is-
We had 2 gas jobs when I started almost 40 years ago at Camp Precast and they were pieces.
Yeah, yeah. They don't have the payload, they don't have the torque.
Yeah, that's what I said. I don't really want to ask a question, but let me answer
Yeah.
the question. anyway.
No, it's, I mean,
I know the answer, but
Correct.
you know, they would eliminate all that, which is costing.
right,
Yeah, well, that's good. You'll get to do one plow, one pass, and you'll have to go charge it on somebody's house, because that ain't gonna do
I'm
it.
sure it'll have solar panels for exterior panels.
2 AM in the morning. 2 AM in the morning with solar.
Back to your other question. I think
Why is
we
this
should
thing,
bring-
you know what, we'll have to pave the roads, all of them, because it'll just sink in the dirt.
So
in the wake of it.
where are we at with the paving?
It's right here. I have that, I haven't brought it up yet.
No,
So-
he showed me, so
Okay.
I know the answer. So
Todd just brought up a point, or Todd just brought up another, not another, but he was finishing the thought that I had started with. The equipment repair fund, when we do budgeting for this coming year, I think we should bring the balance up to 50,000.
Cause that seems to be the cost of replacement one of those. systems,
And again,
right? I mean,
this- And just so that everybody out there is under the same definition, we're bringing it up to 50. If next year we only spend 10, the next year we only have to replace 10.
They asked for 10.
Right.
That's right.
Right.
So we're trying to bring the roof up to 50 instead of 35 so that,
We have the money if we need.
well, and quite honestly, the repairs.
In general, everything's.
I was gonna say, everything's going up, parts and labor are
Yeah.
through the roof, so I mean, even, no, yeah, so I'm,
Computers and stuff, yeah, you can't touch them out.
right.
No.
And I bet you they charge you almost $500-$600 just to hook it up to the computer without even telling you anything.
Yeah, but it's like Max said, you know, it used to be in the old days, you could diagnose it in the shop down here.
Right.
Yep,
Now you don't have a clue. Not
Well, that-
unless you're gonna spend $50,000 on a
That-
special computerized equipment.
and when the computers first came out, they'd hook it up to the computer and tell you what was wrong with it
Mhm.
and didn't charge you. Now it's,
Yeah, now they charge you. True. Gotta pay that techie.
Yep,
So I see you're grading.
did today. There was moisture again. Now we're gonna 10 days without, but I don't think there's many that were in the shape that. I hit
Yeah, it's-
that Friday morning, the potholes. Took pretty good care, and then I hit the rest of it today with the scours and stuff.
Which road are we talking about?
Which got.
Yeah, I saw
Yeah.
you.
Which cat was pretty bad.
Which got Doyle.
Yeah.
East Bakersfield. Oh.
Yeah.
Let the East Bakersfield side.
Squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Chemo today.
It is.
I've got-
yeah, I heard there was some entry stuff on King Road, like right here in front of Tip, yeah, on Kings Hill.
Friday.
And then basically it's like right at the end of all the pavements for these entries.
Yeah.
Which, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, that's usually where it's gonna be an issue.
He hit the one on King today.
Yeah, King Road
And I
too.
hit the one on
Um,
East Bakersfield.
and which cat is that?
Thursday.
Was that the full length? The complaint I heard was that,
Basically, it's Jarvis Sugar House
Mhm.
to the corner.
Right.
From there up, I mean, I spotted it a little bit on Friday.
okay,
Yeah, it was,
It was really what, 4 sections, I think it was.
yeah,
You could go down,
3
yeah.
feet deep.
No.
well, the complaint I got was, very general. Just
Yeah.
which cat, they didn't say where, they didn't say how bad.
That's what it was.
They just, I was like, okay, I said, I would check with you and get back to them, and you said you were hitting
I
it
told you I
either,
couldn't do it today.
yep,
Friday, my his wife had an appointment and it got postponed till 2, so I.
went out and hit it, okay, perfect, yep.
Hit the spot.
It's like Crossroad is a little bit potty, but
Slow down, it's a
But-
short road,
it's a short road. And it's not gonna get any worse for the next 10 days, because we're not gonna get any more rain.
hey, you give it a month, it'll be packed full of snow, get over it.
There you go.
You know, the.
I'm not complaining. I'm just supporting.
Yeah.
There's 2 exits to that road.
If you stay way over to the right, you miss them all. Just make sure you run your right-hand wheels in the grass.
It's getting to a point now where you're getting the moisture at night, you know, the dew.
Yeah.
So it's packing down some.
Yeah, when you come in, when you come to the end of your driveway, turn left instead.
So with these big potholes,
because of the-
and I was talking to my driveway guy. 'cause he's
washboard
gotta
on
come
the
out
hill
fix
over
my
there.
drive. Big
I don't
potholes.
complain about
Are,
that because I
do
don't
we have
go
the
there.
capability with anything we have to, he grinds it, but to take that pothole out and then refill it? Cause his thing is, and I'll just tell you what he says to me, and I don't know, right? I'm not a driveway guy, I'm not a road guy, but it makes sense when you explain it. You have a bowl and you put material in and it just constantly gets rutted out. You have to grind that bowl out so that it actually takes the material.
He's using a Harley rake.
He's using right,
Yeah.
and I don't think we have a Harley, but the one thing he said to me is, the one thing he said is he also, like, when he hits problems like that, he'll take a backhoe to it and cut it out and then drag it back in. And it's not a perfect, I'm just saying,
So,
for these big
Yeah.
holes, we may wanna,
We do have a star fire with the grader.
yeah,
It does not have the teeth on it right now, but I could put them on and rip, but
rip it up a bit.
the problem
That's-
is.
It does a lot.
it does a lot.
Yeah.
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 you Get a lot of.
Others.
Yeah, you bring them up, you bring them up to the surface. Yeah, and I agree with that too, but like I said, it was just something we were talking about, cause he just came out over the weekend and him and I were talking about my drive.
Yeah.
Again, and I'm like, these holes just keep reappearing.
Unless you
So-
try to use it on my road, then you're gonna stop dead.
My driveway.
Bang.
Well,
Toward the end of the week, some of those rocks are gonna disappear.
and
Trust me.
there was I can't remember if it was on Facebook or if I overheard somebody talking about it. Within the town. That they were like, what we really need is we need to resurface the roads. Which is a great idea, and I wouldn't disagree with that. However, I was gonna say, we're talking about a significant increase in taxes
In
Mm-hmm.
and.
a year when you're gonna be doing reappraisal.
So the reappraisals theoretically shouldn't raise your taxes with the explanation I got from the state.
You
Here it
know how
comes.
much money we need, all right? We know what the grand list is. We assign a percentage of that grand list to get what we need.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any, yes, there is going to be some minor adjustments up and down for people who've done improvements or additions on their houses. Well, you should have thought about that before you did the additions or whatever.
But
But
the way it was
as a
explained,
general,
Right.
we're just going to, all right, the grand list is 20% bigger than it used to be. We're not gonna get 20% more in taxes. We're gonna lower the tax rate.
so the way it was explained to me that made it easy for me to understand was. We need 500,000. And if that costs you at your tax rate now $1. If we still need 500,000, but your house doubles in value, now you only need 50 cents.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Still getting the
That
same,
makes sense.
so I mean, it's gonna be, it should be fairly close to a wash. But, if we're talking about resurfacing roads, if we're talking about major upgrades to our road infrastructure, which, I mean, Max out there, Max graded them. I mean, you hit ledge in some spots just because there's not much cover. We're not the only town that does that. Enosburg, our neighbors, they're in the same boat we are,
They
It's-
do
it's
use
expensive.
Pick roads and do one road this year, another road, they try to.
To an extent,
You
to an
do-
extent,
You do resurface areas that need it.
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what I'm saying.
But
That
I
can
doubt
kind
that
of-
there's very few roads in this town that need to be entirely resurfaced.
No,
I mean,
correct, so
Correct.
I don't know.
what he's doing is correct. He's identifying problem areas and resurfacing them as needed. And as we can afford.
That's all I was saying is that in order to do that, it's gonna cost us
And I
a
think the
lot more
more
money.
ditching we do, the better that's gonna.
Yeah, we can knock the berms
as
off.
well.
That's,
I think
I think the main thing we have is the berms hold the water on the road, which causes the deterioration of the road.
They're out with the excavator right now. They're addressing that problem. They're
Oh, no.
doing
Where are you now?
ditches and removing.
Where are you
berms.
now, Mac?
Well, we started at the pit and then we come to the top of the hill by the brick house and we're heading towards,
Yeah.
Lansing's. We're gonna pull out that.
And it's looking good.
And do some, rock removal.
Yep,
And then
yep.
from there, I'm planning on going to. the
He's got a
soil.
stump that's got his name on it too.
Oh.
He's taking it out.
No tannerite.
Oh, it's looking good.
Todd had a question, or not a question, a comment. King Road.
Oh, the culverts that are still in the ditch up there
yeah.
on King, can we grab those?
Yeah.
If they're good, if they're not good, then grab them and we should be charging that person
Yeah,
for
I think,
taking care of it.
I think that they're probably good enough for a logger or a farmer. I think.
Okay.
I was gonna say, we have a spot for stuff that's
And the
like
only
that.
other complaint I had from that same person was, the power company came through and did a lot of. And a lot of the logs are still laying in the ditch. So I said, don't get to it, they just haven't got that road yet.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as we get done with the excavator.
Yeah.
Get things going. then-
Yeah, that's what I kind of.
So I mean-
as well.
Technically, that would be the landowners.
Even though they're in the ditch,
Well, I mean, it was cut off your property. I mean, if they wanted it,
yeah, if they
you know,
wanted it.
if they wanted it, it's,
There's popple and.
Yeah, it's
They
nothing,
don't want that.
right,
okay.
and it's.
How much is up there?
Companies Just
It's the
clearing all
right of
lanes,
way,
right?
yeah.
Right.
Is there a lot of it up there?
Spots, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a couple of spots.
My,
that-
my old Smoky don't care what it is, as long as it
Gonna say, We
burns.
can put just about anything.
Yeah,
It's in wood.
Shit.
I do.
Yeah, okay, is that where you're at? If you're gonna take care of it, I won't worry about it, but
Sure, like.
Gonna say, Sure would.
yeah,
Your
I,
John likes popple.
I have popple trees down, I cut them up. Again.
don't let them sit on the ground.
No,
They absorb the water.
Yeah.
They soak it up.
Yep.
So what are these proposals that we have?
Proposals for paving. Did you get in touch with Hungerford's again to see if that was the same? Okay, didn't want to open that can of worms. So we have one from Hungerford Paving, we have one from Pike, and we have a response from Bushies. Now, Pike and Hungerford both gave us a dollar amount.
Mhm.
And Bushy said, unfortunately, at this time, they are not accepting any jobs until spring.
Perfect.
So that
Yep.
that checks the box.
Yep.
So Mac, if you want to reach out to those other two, see if they have an updated number. That monies, everybody got to see that in the,
Yeah.
in
it's on the
the,
last page.
the last page of the, if you just flip your all the way over, 86.
807.
Yeah, I thought that looked like a 6. I'm getting old.
Do you need a
Um,
motion?
At
Not
this
till we have a
point,
number.
no. At this
Not
point,
to
we'll just get a
exceed-
number from
Not to
Max.
exceed those, so he could get going on it. That's what I'm thinking.
You mean like if they're like,
Saying
if they're ready to
we
go
can-
yesterday
We can come do it next tomorrow.
If that's the same price, I would go.
Right.
with the-
with
Yeah.
the first one I mentioned, Hungerford's.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I was-
So theirs was, they were looking at 500 ton at $96 a ton. I don't actually see a final price on here. Yeah, it's like do your own math type thing. So 48,000, which was considerably cheaper than the other.
Yeah,
Yeah, 10 grand cheaper than Pike.
if we said
I-
not to exceed 50,000, you probably cover it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if his price is the same, then yeah, I mean, if he comes back and he says, you know, they're 130 a ton,
Well, yeah.
you know, cause he was doing a job
Right,
at the
right.
school,
Right,
so I wasn't sure.
Oh,
We weren't sure if he was just gonna tag on at the same time,
right.
not have to move equipment multiple times, not have to. Look into that.
We can put that on there.
No, yeah, if that's his price, then I think we can, yeah, I think we could make a
So
motion.
I would make a motion that we. What are we gonna do? guys?
Set it not to exceed.
Right, no, just
Just-
not to exceed.
Not to accept,
50,000,
not to exceed $50,000
Whatever comes.
For
from the-
paving of
for paving of the avenue and
Academy
the
Lane.
Academy Lane.
I'll second that motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Perfect.
That includes my driveway,
Huh?
That includes my driveway, right?
$50,000
Yes.
to pay the avenue in the academy. So is
Right.
it-
Yes.
Yeah. And just if it does come in at over 50,000, we'll we'll reconvene.
Yeah.
If you can get, well, we meet again before the 25th, don't we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Depends on where it's-
Say you got voted.
Yeah, that's true. We
What's the
could,
timeframes realistically?
yeah. So last year, we were gonna have them do Boston Post
Right.
and we didn't want them to do it during corn season. Cause they
Right.
would have just pushed all the new pavement right out with the heavy trucks going over it. So they actually did it, what, like the second week in November?
Very late when we had one.
Yeah.
And they did it just before the plant.
And it seems to hold up pretty well. That road doesn't,
No,
It's fine.
it's pretty nice.
right.
Corn.
Yep. So it got to settle all winter. Perfect. So I mean, yeah, I mean, not that that road sees the traffic, but you know, I wouldn't want you guys to pave that and then the next day decide, oh, let's go haul 100 loads of gravel out of the pit, you know?
Grain trucks are about the only thing we see on the avenue every day.
Yeah,
That's about.
the
it.
milk
For
trucks
big-
are only
no,
going out
no,
half
that
loaded,
is-
so.
It works for Lily, has the tractor trailer.
Yeah.
That's about.
He's bobtail though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that he's,
Once in a while he brings his trailer, but not too.
Yeah.
often.
that's, any others on roads?
Yes, I do. So I had a really good meeting with the Belvedere Mountain folks on Wednesday, and I mentioned this to Matt very briefly. So I won't go into detail right now because we've had a long night, but there's a lot of willingness and enthusiasm to work on that road and to continue the education efforts in that area. The biggest stumbling block right now is no one knows where the road actually is. So the Bakers did a survey
Mhm.
and that's been brought down here. So Kathy has it. We were asked if we would certify the road and I nodded, not knowing what that meant. So, and I mentioned it to Mac and we had a very brief conversation about what that might look like. But basically the town has to say, this is the road before
This-
anybody will.
This is our 3-rod section. Is that a 3-rod road up there or is that narrower?
I thought it was an error. Is
Is-
this three?
I
I thought it was a two.
yeah, but that one, isn't that the one that we always have the
I
issues
I
with?
can remember as a kid, going by
Um,
father, we had to pull over and let the other car go by.
With the house on, or the old horse farm on the corner? That owns,
Oh, yeah,
he
Yeah.
claims it's narrower.
yeah. Andy very well.
Okay.
I've never been up there.
Mr. Brown?
Yeah, yeah. Because he always complained that that was a narrower road
Right.
and it's on his deed as a
Yeah,
narrower
it's a
road.
damn telephone pole,
Yeah.
yeah.
Instead of three, that's what I.
So I mean, if we can go up there and they were the state people that were with us when we went up there to the pond.
Mhm.
Were very adamant that this is where the road goes. I mean, my thought is if we can pull a landmark, for example, that.
That pin you found?
Well, no, I was thinking that boulder that's right in the middle of the pond.
Mhm.
It's not a boulder, it's a ledge that.
There's a pin further up. Do you remember
Was there?
seeing
I
it?
didn't
Yeah.
see it.
Yeah.
There was the,
Yeah.
I don't,
the elevation pin, isn't it?
was that what it was?
I think it was.
Okay.
But I think that was on the other side of the bog.
Okay.
Wasn't it? We went.
I
around the
think we
corner.
just need to go up and establish
I don't know that.
and sign off as a select board and say this is where we recognize the road as being.
I wonder if we could.
We need to look at
The survey will
The
tell. us what it
surveys,
is.
the surveys are different.
Yeah,
That's the problem.
the problem is the state was going off one survey.
right.
The, so A&R had a map.
I would go
Um,
A&Rs.
well, you can, but like, for example, Baker's survey,
Yeah,
their research is all based off of property
Deeds.
deeds.
Oh, okay,
So when they did the survey on that, they probably started at the bottom of the hill
Mhm.
that's.
and took road frontage all the way up that hill
Mm-hmm.
to find theirs and then did their survey
Right.
of the Baker property. So, you know, for us to say, we're going with A&R's map, it could be off. And
Problem is, it's like everything.
A&R is based on aerial survey.
But,
A&R's maps are based on aerial survey,
old aerial photography from
old
the
aerial
Oh,
photography.
fifties and sixties.
So how long has that road been drifting?
Right.
One way
Yeah.
or the other, it's true.
So I guess the question would be is, what is the oldest dated aerial photographer that we could get? I still have my stereoscope. Can you still read?
Yeah. Oh, boy.
Yeah.
I know where he went to college, so I can make him look at those maps. He probably did a lot more with them than I did because GIS was coming into play when I was there. So we did a lot more with GIS.
No, we did a lot of work with stereoscopes.
So if we could get I don't know where we would find an aerial photographer, an aerial photo of that area. We might have to reach out to Mr. Manchester himself. He probably has a bank of beautiful aerial photography photos.
State Forestry Department probably would have those on record somewhere.
Probably
Yeah.
have more of them, yeah.
So that may be our best bet before we go up there and say, this is where it is. Maybe just get a little look at it. Cause I can tell you right now, the ledge protrusion that we were standing around when we were up there meeting, that hasn't moved.
No. No,
So if you can,
that's a hard limit.
if you can find that and go as far back as we possibly can to find where the road was then
Then we'll know.
we can set it from there. And
So,
we'll establish it as a 2-rod road as has been argued every time we've had a discussion about that road. That's personal opinion. But
You have that description of town roads. Can you pull up that one, please? Belvedere Mountain Road.
You mean in that book?
Yeah,
I can hold the book.
no, not right now. Just pull it up.
Yeah.
And some of them are very hard to read. If we could ask Tammy to decipher it and type it out. Thank you. I know I'd asked you before, but I didn't know if you'd had time to do it. If you could pull the town description of the Belvedere Mountain Road up for our next meeting so that we could take a peek at that, please. Thank you. And thank you for interpreting it.
I might be able to.
They were, the original descriptions were written in cursive.
So it's hard to decipher.
They're
Yeah.
been copied and they're very hard for me to read.
Probably done the school thing.
Thank you.
I might,
If I hadn't thanked you for it before, I am now.
and I might
could
be
you
able
reach
to,
out for photos as well?
well, I was gonna say, I might be able to reach out to Nancy Patch's replacement.
Yep.
Charlie Hancock.
Identify someone now?
I've heard it's somebody has entered the position, whether or not that is gonna be permanent or not
I get you.
is, I guess they're,
TBD,
Have a name?
you're Charlie.
to be
Who
determined.
came up with this,
TBD.
Charlie Hancock,
Oh, okay.
is what I had heard. I mean, that's hearsay. I can't
Right.
verify.
He is also I think he's the chair of the Selectboard in Montgomery.
He is.
So he has.
He's also on my advisory board.
Oh,
He was also, was he up there with us? No, he met us.
he didn't.
He met us somewhere. No, that was my advisory board meeting. He talked about that while he was at my advisory board meeting. So,
Oh, yeah.
good on roads? Done?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Tractor supply credit card. Do we have one?
Don't.
Why?
Well,
Yeah.
to make an
Oh,
account,
we're doing.
like the old fashioned account, the A's, they send the bill here, they don't do that. You have to apply for a tractor supply credit card, that's your account. If you use the credit card, you put the bill on there, then you pay the credit card.
Okay.
So that's another credit card that we just wanted. We have to go through the board to see if that's.
Would that be as easy or would that be harder than just taking the
Credit
town
card.
credit card and going there?
What do we need another?
I mean, I don't have a problem doing what I did as far as anyone can reimburse, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but with the town card itself, the town card, we can use that over at the tractor.
Certain users that can use it, or?
Yeah.
I thought that Kathy and Mac were the two who had access to that for up
So
to.
I think if you have the card in your possession,
I use the golf course. all
I was
the
gonna say, I
time.
use the school's credit card with,
Right.
as long as it's in your,
Yeah.
And I
So-
mean, worst case scenario, they, if say you sent Al to get a part or whatever, a pin or something, he takes the card and he'd say, well, call the town clerk or call my boss or whatever. I think that, I mean, cause it's not gonna be any different than having a tractor supply credit card that says town of Bakersfield.
Big purchases. Right. You know, like you said, hitch pin or something like that.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
that's pennies.
So I think at this point, I think I would just forego the tractor supply credit card and use the town credit card if it's
So we can remove. the-
personal opinion, no,
Agree with that?
okay.
Yeah, so we can remove this from the,
Yes, I
Future.
believe we can.
it's a striker.
Warrants and reports are done, informational meetings before November. I have a note here with some highlighting on it, so it must be important.
I thought we picked some dates in October.
Australian ballot and informational hearing. How do towns give notice of public information hearings that is required when using Australian ballot system for voting? You know, I butchered that because my tongue feels like it's about this big right now. Whoa.
It's all right.
Why do I think
So what happened,
Essentially,
what are,
Within 10
time
days.
limits?
All right, the informational meeting, you still didn't know, which is administered by the select board, must be held within 10 days immediately preceding the town meeting, which the Australian ballot system of voting is to be used
Within 10
That
days.
is the key.
within
And
10
it's got to
days.
be warned 15 days.
The informational hearing,
This is the vote, right?
the informational hearing must be warned at least 10 days in advance by posting notice of the hearing in at least 2 public places in town and the town clerk's office.
So it has to be posted basically by October 15th.
Correct.
Depending on
November
when-
5th?
Yeah,
I think
well.
dates, right?
It has to be, that's the latest possible day we could do it.
So do you want me to keep reading or do you want to
Do
keep,
we have?
do you want to try to figure it out? Hey,
We have.
Hold on.
That's the latest we could possibly do it.
I still have more to read.
Go
Yeah.
ahead, read away.
Be done, McNutt.
So, meetings need to be held sometime in the week of October 28th,
Yes,
warned 10 days prior that.
right.
Okay, so that, I
So
mean,
the 18th.
so it's
Yeah,
gotta be,
well,
gotta
that's
be
the-
warned.
I was
before-
giving you the warning date,
Oh, okay,
okay?
That's why I got lost.
so everybody was still.
That's what
talking.
I said.
I had
That's the
noticed.
latest possible date we could warn it before.
Right,
So. We really need to decide then what day of the week. Is the
So-
28th a regular?
so we had talked about doing
It's a
2
regular
meetings.
So the first meeting doesn't matter, it's the second one we have to have
Right.
within those 10 days.
Okay, it doesn't say anything here about having multiple
No.
meetings, so
So
I
that's-
didn't know.
Yeah,
Can we
that's,
Let's just have one.
You wanna just have one?
Yes,
The problem is,
I don't
and
care.
you know, is every time we have one meeting, everybody goes, well, I didn't know about that.
Good news.
Yeah, but it's-
Town crier, then.
Yeah. I think-
we will advertise it everywhere.
We've done everything we can to communicate, short of knocking on the door.
That doesn't mean that people won't argue.
Well, that's,
What's
Part of the-
It's part of the job.
Oh,
Mechanisms are in place.
okay,
Part of the
so
job.
we are talking about having a meeting.
29th, the 30th, you're not doing
No.
Halloween.
What?
Has to be 10 days up, right? The 29th of October, the 30th of
the
October?
Yeah.
28th is the
28th.
day we could have it.
So the
28th.
28th, we have
Sorry.
a meeting.
Yeah, that's. what
I
I'm
would
saying,
rather
just
we
do-
keep it separate. because
I agree.
That's gonna
I,
go long.
yes, I agree
You
with
and
you.
brother just do it.
I agree. So again, well, we can only do it. Well, no, we can't do it any earlier
Cause
Right,
John.
because, no, the 25th is Friday.
No, I
And
think.
that's in the evening.
Oh, okay,
John
okay.
can't get here and people work.
So,
Have to make it accessible.
again,
It's going to be
we have the
Saturday.
30th,
Right.
which is Wednesday.
I think the 30th is the day, because Wednesdays are good for you, Todd,
Info meeting.
right?
Early.
Can everyone else make the 30th
Mhm.
of
I
October?
believe so.
Yep.
And let's just. go for
There's
Now
that
we-
Halloween stuff happening.
21st.
I know, but I'm just making sure there's,
Thursday, no.
it's
Friday.
midweek, so there won't be anything
Yeah,
happening.
it's dead
Sorry,
center.
I said latest and I meant to say earliest we could have. it
So
morning.
if we
I-
do the
I just
30th at
realized I
7,
Put it that way.
informational meeting, the 30th, October 30th at 7?
Yes.
Is is it 7 an optimal time for everybody, do we think?
I think 7, you have taken into consideration the people that get off work at 5 in Burlington and can still make it here and, yep.
You're still gonna have people complain.
Without
It's
doubt.
Not on Saturday
Yep.
versus a week and
So Zoom it.
We will make a Zoom
I was
available.
gonna say it will be.
Was
Zoom,
that other meeting we
so-
just set up?
No.
Brian's,
Brian, what
Brian's
date was that?
25th.
25th, Wednesday, the 25th at 6.
I gotta put that in a different calendar. Appreciate it.
Yes,
So
but,
it'll be-
The vote for law
I
enforcement,
was putting it in the wrong
It was
calendar.
on the-
Won't remind me.
well, it'd just be ballot items,
okay.
informational meeting for ballot items.
And Brigham was the other one.
Brigham is the other one, that's what I was trying to.
We will explain what those are on
Yeah.
the Facebook page and
Yeah.
then.
Right. And I mean, we've discussed them a couple times
Yeah.
here.
So do we need a motion?
I think we do. You know, let's just do it just to make sure that, we dot our i's and cross our t's.
Are you emotional about it?
Motion that we have
Yes.
Oh.
the informational meeting for the 2 ballot measures that will be on the November
General election.
general election should be on Wednesday, the 30th of October at 7.
I will second that. I will second that.
Some aggression being taken out over there on that microphone. All right, motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Any mail?
Easy. Yeah, I have the mail all laid out very specifically.
Oh.
Yep. Efficiency Vermont. This is somebody that just wants us to go through Efficiency Vermont to see if we can save thousands of dollars. Well, they didn't want to give us any money, so apparently they don't. And I also put that with the proposed schedule for grant opportunities, but that's the old one, so that's good there. School transfer. I asked Brian about this. This is from Morgan Daybell, he is the financial person for the school district. This is to Kristen. Oh, he's got 2 different names here, so that's awesome. Kristen Wright, and he starts out the email. Catherine, I'm filling out the PTTR for the conveyance of the school property to the new district. As you may recall, the handwritten deed you faxed to Morgan is very difficult to read. Do you know the acreage for the school? I know it is whatever was conveyed minus the 1.69 acres, ... So I don't know who this is to.
I don't know why we're
See,
getting it though.
it seems that the new supervisor union didn't get a deed, Brigham, when they took over.
Okay. So
So there was never any, I think, I suggest that we discuss this with Tennyson Doan,
okay,
to see if indeed the property was transferred.
okay.
The school, the actual school, you mean, or?
Well,
The elementary school.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't think it ever was.
I don't believe it was either.
yeah, so I
I
don't,
don't think it was, and I think that's why they're trying to sneak this in.
I
So-
don't sign anything.
no, there's nothing to sign. It's them asking, so I get it now. They're asking Kathy,
Right,
but they put her.
I don't think it was ever voted, I don't ever remember hearing anything as a town person saying.
We never
Meeting.
voted as a town to give them the school.
No,
You know, damn it, I've said this time and time and again, this town floated the bond to build that school.
right, right,
The supervisory union didn't.
no, I agree with you.
This town paid for that school. This town owns that school and the land it sits on.
I almost didn't.
That's right, we'll sell it to them.
100 million is theirs.
There are other towns that would use to transfer their school over and they rent it.
Oh, there you go, I like that idea,
Yeah,
$1,000 a year.
then we end up paying it back ourselves. No,
They
yeah.
would have the school, they
Right.
retained ownership because they didn't want to give it up.
I was just saying.
Yeah, I don't think
Give
we,
it up at that.
I don't think we gave it up.
I know Kenny was chair of
Doesn't
the
Back then.
school board back then, so he would be the one to ask.
Does the
Oh.
board have that, or is it town property? That's my question. When I was on the school board, I thought.
I will put it this way, when the school board owned Brigham, the town had to buy it.
Okay. All right,
So
so the school board owns the building, not the town.
right.
So they need deeded.
Well, I don't know. You would think that would have to go to a town
To the
vote. I don't
voters.
recall a town vote about that.
I don't either.
When would it have been?
It should have been when we signed,
How?
when we
recently?
signed over to Act.
Was it 5 years ago?
Yeah.
We don't-
Whatever.
Unless it was in the verbiage of Act 60 in the fine print somewhere and everybody didn't read it.
I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, 5 years ago, probably.
Other towns have
Right.
not done it.
I'll argue with you. On a
So
roll tonight, I just need to go.
this one is an email that I received and forwarded on. It's in regards to Kings Hill Road.
Yeah.
Luno property. And them wanting the town to repair a class 4 road. I kind of feel like we've set a precedence with what is being done on Belvedere Mountain Road, where we are not doing the repairs, but we're yes, it does. And if you read the minutes, it says that we would make stuff available. And
Something being resolved.
Mhm.
I mean, it's clearly stated.
That's one of the culverts, something, the culverts there.
Mhm.
Or one of them got.
By the beaver.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one got overflowed and they put a second one in and that didn't.
Didn't work. Plugged.
Yeah.
And went over the road again.
Yes. I do remember that meeting, and I don't remember. all that went on.
I'm just reading the minutes, so I know what my take on it was, but I'm gonna let him read the minutes.
Yeah. You sure? No, Terry was here. So it wasn't
Yeah.
something, it was Terry, yeah.
That's my ability. I believe that we agreed to supply him with an old culvert and he put it in. It was a secondhand culvert that we removed from some place, and we happened to have a 4-foot culvert from William.
That was
Provided that we got the
Culvert,
funding for that.
and we did.
Yeah.
And it was available and still
And that
is
was
available.
before our new policy.
We agreed to
We've created.
provide him with
based
that
on-
old culvert. And that's my take on it. That's the best of my memory. I could be totally screwed up, so.
This was the beaver, what do you call it, that shifted everything over?
Yeah.
I think he felt sick.
no, I'm just reading, it does, there is a thing here that says that there will be a solution. It was also stated by members of the board at the time that we needed to study how to best repair. Put our heads together and come to a solution. We might have a culvert that would work, but we wouldn't be able to get up there to do any of the repairs. Right here, it says. Didn't want to be a burden to the town, and this could set a precedence that we were not willing to entertain. There's quite a bit in here, but a lot of it is discussion. It did say that we would try to come up with a solution, but at this time, we had to do some studying and we were not willing to set a precedence on class 4 roads.
Right, did we make a motion to this? Was there any motion made at the end of this whole thing?
Back where it was or something. Yeah.
Well,
Well, I think
yeah, but was there a motion made committing anything to the class 4?
right,
Right.
That there would be something done by,
Yeah.
you know what?
that I do remember that. Yeah.
But we danced around the fact that we weren't setting precedents, so we weren't installing the solution. We would offer solution. Oh. I mean, he's reading your notes, so I'm gonna have to watch the meeting if you're saying there was a promise without a motion.
It was pretty, I remember that,
It was gonna be done by winter, they didn't know how, but,
right.
and so watch that meeting.
What's the date of the meeting?
It doesn't say anything in here about there being. Yes. August 14th, 2023.
Just watch that.
It was really 2022?
3.
23, I'm still. Wow.
Didn't they say 3? I thought it said
Gonna
3.
say, I didn't-
All right.
Well, we have to watch the minutes, so
We're not doing
we
anything with
can't
it
do anything
today.
with it tonight. What else you got, Josh?
I know there was an
That
agreement,
it?
we did come to somewhat of an agreement, but I don't.
But the agreement was that we weren't doing anything. It even says in there that we, you know, there might have been.
So anyhow, Brigham?
Yes, Brigham.
Oh, he asked me to make a comment about one of the state checks here. If you go back to the first statement. Front side, 3 pages from the back. You'll see a credit to our accounts from the state of Vermont for $38,577. That is reimbursement for the Brigham grant.
So where did those funds fall in?
That goes to the general fund.
It goes into reimburse for the monies that we spent out of the general fund already. Do
Right.
Yep.
you want
Very
those back?
The difference being, it was a $45,000 grant, but there was $6,000 worth of in kind.
Mhm.
38,577. And we didn't quite use it all up, so. Add $6,000 for the in-kind credit there.
Yeah.
And it comes out to pretty close to $45,000, so I'm satisfied with it.
Okay. And that's all in the general fund now, 38.
That is in the general fund, yes.
Perfect,
Tom asked me where to put it, I told him I directed him to put it in the general fund.
perfect.
Yeah. None.
What's that?
Any others?
Yes, yes, sorry, you didn't get away with no others, but it's actually because it didn't show up on this agenda and it should have. I called 6 different heating vendors about the heaters here. I was instructed to do. You will see people possibly showing up as early as tomorrow at 8 AM. Alan Holbert, to go down and relook at it. We got Bernie Gage coming back in the next couple days to look at it. He found the pictures he took 2 years ago when we asked him to do it, but he wants to go down and refamiliarize himself with it. You have on October 9th, Brock's is coming in somewhere between 8 and noon, but I told him it should be closer to 8. Brock's, BROCK. Brock's will be in. FMK Heating, CMK Harrington, and Bullen Brothers. I'm waiting to, they've all either left voice messages or one of them called me back and was trying to work out a date. But Mac, I don't know, in every scenario, I reminded them that they're going to have to take the wall down or a section of it, or we're going to take the wall down, either or. Whichever, because that was their big concern the last time for every one of them. They balked about that wall.
We might just have to hire a contractor to do that.
You got an excavator.
Yeah, we can take out a wall for sure.
Then the chainsaw.
We can take, but that excavator will take out a big wall.
Yeah.
Like,
But that wall is already cut. We just have to pull the paneling down carefully so we don't break it.
There's complications. If you look where that is, you're gonna have to take out the stairs to
There's
get,
electrical.
take out the stairs and drop it
Straight
down.
This
Yeah.
is off the top. Oh, it's gonna be gorgeous. So anyhow, they debated 1-2 units. We talked about that. I said, we were looking possibly for 1 unit with multi-zones, blah, blah, blah. So Tammy, just so you know, you'll see somebody as early as possibly tomorrow. And then they're gonna trickle in between 8 and noon, Monday to Thursdays. There are 6 of them. That's it.
Sweet.
Excellent.
It's like 6 more than we got last time.
Well, we'll see if they show up. Yeah, yes.
It's a start.
Do you have any
Right.
others?
I have no other others.
Any others?
Make the motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Well,
Any opposed? Good night.
I wanna talk.
Hang on a minute. Oh, man, the mouse don't wanna work.